Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, Season 3, Episode 21. I'm one of your hosts, Alejandro. With me is the Dark Knight of guest spots.
Hey, yeah, man, the Prince of Podcasts, the Dark Knight of guest spots, the the smacketh down laying, because I'm about to be playing AEW Fight Forever. It's me, Sebastion Mauldin. How y'all doing today?
We're doing good. So how's life been, Sebastion? Last time I saw you was literally a week ago when we reacted to a certain showcase that it guested over on your side. So, and you got a spicy new green screen behind you now. So. Yeah,
man, I've been upgrading a lot of different things lately. Some new sponsorships, been doing a lot of different things like that. I've been good. Been playing a lot of games lately. This year's been absolutely stacked with games, so much so that I felt like I've been sleeping on some stuff. So I had to go back and play some stuff that previously came out earlier this year. So yeah, it's been good. Yeah,
I feel that way about like a bunch of the indie stuff because I've noted that this is one of the rare years where every big game, thankfully because of me working with Season Gaming, I've been able to like use that as an excuse to play the big games like right on the moment. This was one of the first times that I'm like, holy crap, like I played all the big games that matter already, and I'm like, crap, what do I do now? It's like I always had that fear, like even from years prior. Is like when I know that a recent game has come out, and even if it's not unless it's one that I'm super excited about, like I did Star Wars Jedi Survivor that we're actually gonna talk about because he just recently finished it at my like and me and Paul's like insistence that you needed to play it. Other times, like I buy something new and then use that as an excuse to play something that came before, kind of like pushing the boulder of like what's the latest. So that then by the time that I reach the latest, I'm not like just sitting there, kind of like a SpongeBob the Press, like with his cup of coffee at the Krusty Krab, like pens to be like, what do I do now? And I'm kind of like right now in that spot, waiting for the two games that come out tomorrow and on the 6th. Though technically one comes out today, but I'm not paying the extra dollars for that.
Nah.
But yeah, so I'm glad to have you here. My buddy Paul, he had this is so funny. The last week of May, always for him, it's always vacation time. That's when he usually would always go to visit Destin, Florida. So what we did last year was, for the episode that was gonna air the week that he was out, we recorded early for an episode that we called The Games That Made Us, which was just a topical episode where we're all gonna list all the consoles that we've owned and what was our favorite game from each console. Not best, like the one that when we think of that console we think of that game, whether it was good or bad. And it was like one of my most enjoyable episodes. It got pretty emotional at times because it was just like a trip down nostalgia lane. And till this day I was like, man, I hope we can do another topical episode to kind of like break the mold that we do the what we've been playing, then we do news, and or when we do like spoiler casts. But yeah, this time he had a work trip, so then he couldn't bring his computer with him. So again, like I'm so thankful for having met you. I know that when I know that he's not gonna be there and I'm the one that makes the show, I just have to like light the bat signal in the sky, and I know you're gonna be there. So again, thank you for coming. But yeah, with all that preamble out of the way, just a reminder that this is the X Button Podcast, our gaming podcast that posts every Fridays from 2 p.m. onwards, God willing, available on the YouTube channel Escape Gaming, as well as most audio services around the world, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at tinyurl.com/escapegaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. I tell you, because before it was anchor.fm/escape-gaming, then Spotify bought Anchor, so it had to be like podcasters, the spotify.com/something. I was like, nah, I'm gonna go to tinyurl. You can find everything there with tinyurl. So Sebastion, you're the guest. Before we're gonna talk about the game that I wanna do like a slightly deep dive on,
okay.
Tell me about Dead Island 2.
Dead Island 2, man. Yeah. Dead Island 2 is a very interesting game.
You previewed it at PAX when you went. I remember.
Yeah, I did. And you know, I don't think it previewed well. It didn't really have a whole lot of excitement around the show floor in the media room at all either. So it was like, it's the level that they kind of chose was kind of like smack dab in the middle. You had no connection with any of the characters, and like, I'm gonna be honest, like a lot of the environments and the zombies were kind of like meh, just kind of like middle of the road.
And also the context, this has been a game 9 years in development, so it changed it changed hands through 3 different developers. So obviously I understand why media sentiment was kind of low, because when you have a game that's percolating for that long, it's rare the case that it turns out great or even good. So
yeah, and it was one of those things where like like I don't necessarily fault it, but it's like it was one of the big AAA like studios in the indie kind of festival, and where a lot of the attention was on indies, and a lot of those indies were actually like mainlining indies. You had like indies with bigger booths than this booth, and that's like Digital Devolver had like a huge booth in the middle of the floor that overshadowed this one completely. It looks like you were walking into a movie theater. Like you remember the days when you bought your ticket at the window. It looks like that kind of thing. It had a like pizzazz to it, whereas like this game was kind of off in the corner. You can kind of see it when you walk in, but like it was kind of off to the side. So, but yeah, I did have a time to play it at PAX, and was a little underwhelmed, if I'm being honest, but I decided to go back to it, and I'm kind of glad that I did. This game is a popcorn flick ass game. Like that's what it is. It's like,
and it's not pretending anything else. That's kind of the beauty of it.
No, and it actually leans into those tropes. I am going to do a deep dive spoiler conversation on the single player experience about this game, but like this is that kind of game you want to play when you're just in the mood to just wreck some stuff up and have fun. Like I've
seen the videos of the gore of how you can like wreck those zombies. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And really those were the kind of things that, because I have that arrangement with Paul, that I tell you that's how we kind of get games. And I could only convince him for like whenever that game hits its eventual sale point, which makes me wonder it's gonna take a while for it to hit that, because it actually sold 2 million copies like relatively quickly for its that's why I was like, oh, so I guess it's doing relatively well. I don't think this is gonna drop from its price so soon, and with everything around it. So.
I do think this is like come Black Friday around that November timeline. I do think you will find this for like $20 to $25 though, if I'm being honest, because like even now I saw like some people who were asking about it. Like we were out watching the NBA playoffs and stuff like that, and they were asking, so what is your experience like with this game? I was just like, this is a game that I'd recommend to you if you just want to sit down, have the volume on mute, and just go ahead and wreck some zombies up. Or
listen to a podcast.
Yeah, I'll listen to a podcast. Shout out to the X Button and Single Player Experience podcast there. But like, yeah, this is that type of game. And then like, yeah, if you could find this for around that $20 to $30 marker, it's that perfect price point for it.
Yeah, it definitely has like the air of the mid tier. It was just priced as a $70 game, so that comes with like some extra expectations. But it's like that many people have always said that game is like the surprise of the year, considering the baggage it came with. Especially like you don't switch hands 3 times during development and expect the game to even be like remotely good. Like a recent example of a game that also like spent a lot of time in development and also switched hands a lot and didn't turn out good was over on Xbox, Crackdown 3. Yeah. That was a game that like switched hands so many times. Like its initial like promise of using the light goes, and then its initial promise of using the cloud server Azure for Microsoft. Or at the time they were like, no, our servers are gonna be development tools to like aid developers in their single player stuff and create scale that's not possible. And that in subsequent showings after it was revealed, it wasn't showing that, and then it was just like sectioned off into a multiplayer that was pretty bad, and then the game was just so mediocre. For like Crackdown was never a great game, I'll just say that, but it was always a great time. Unfortunately, Crackdown 3 was like even below that, where people are like, if you have Crackdown 1 and you're anchoring for that, just go play Crackdown 1. So that's an example of a game that spent a lot of time with and didn't turn out good. Then another example of a game that switched hands once within its developer but took 10 years to make was Final Fantasy 15, which I'm actually replaying currently on the road to Final Fantasy 16, which is my next review over at Season Gaming. That's a game again that I think I told in the chat, is like, this game was announced when I was in 6th grade, heading into my summer vacation, 2006, and then it came out literally the week of my finals of my last semester of college. So the fact that it took that long, and then it like switched names halfway through, the fact that game was not a colossal disaster, it's actually quite impressive. That game is not great, but a lot of the things that they do good, it's actually good. That it offsets a lot of the parts that are very half-baked or undercooked, or like you can feel that something happened here in the development where they had to scale back in some stuff like at a certain point because they needed to ship that game out. But it's rare for everything to percolate that along and turning out at least in the 7s, like in that good, in kind of like that good window. So waiting for a sale for Dead Island 2 for sure in that one. So
I'd recommend that.
Yeah. Planet of Lana, which is one of the recent Xbox Game Pass games, and the thing, Sebastion, is like you're not the only, like you kind of were like hinting in our chat that you Paul and I have about how much like you actually like this, and Lord Cognito from Iron Lord's podcast and Defining Duke, he was also one that sing the exact same praises that you were kind of hinted at. But have the floor. Tell me about Planet of Lana.
Me and Laura got some similar tastes here.
Yeah.
There. I mean, we've hit it off at PAX pretty well as well. So it's one of those things to where Planet of Lana is a beautiful game. One of the best looking games I've probably played this year. It has like some really cool effects, some really cool visuals. It is a puzzle game by nature, but like the whole thing is like your environment, your basically all your civilization has been kidnapped by alien invaders, and it's up to you to kind of like try to get them back by any means necessary.
So quick question, how similar it is to something like Inside or Limbo?
It's
very similar to that. Yeah, that's kind of like the vibe I was getting. Obviously a more colorful game than the other ones that are more like shades of gray and dark with some red, like like Inside. But continue.
It's very similar to Inside. It's like it's more vibrant, like you were saying, than Inside is, but like that same gameplay mechanic to where you're kind of like it's almost like you're moving in a cumbersome fashion, and where you're kind of you feel the weight of every single movement, and you're kind of like trying to pull things, and you're trying to like push things into just the right position and just the right timing to where like your opponents are like the people who are chasing you on the screen kind of get trapped and such like that. It is a very intriguing game. I think it's one of the most beautiful games this year. It is small,
just from an art I can like we're seeing it behind your fancy green screen. It's like it's evocative. I love that. It's like I really love evocative art styles. It's like even a game like I know that you have your problems with it with Tears of the Kingdom, like especially like when compared to like what a game in a technical sense should be in like 2023. I feel a lot of that game is like it's carried a lot by its like animated art style. If it didn't have that, if you try to attempt something more realistic, and I tell you, like I tried a game like Hyrule Warriors that's also there that does like the Zelda but more realistic. Oof! I tell you, that game not a looker, but the animated art styles can push a lot. When it comes to like a visual presentation, especially when photorealism, I feel like we've hit a limit to like how pretty everything can be, or for it to be like impressive. I feel like we hit like, oh, this is so beautiful, it's so photorealistically beautiful. I feel like we hit kind of like that ceiling, and I feel like a more defined colorful art style is the way to like keep like pushing the visual envelope, and that's kind of what I'm seeing. I'm loving the Ori and the Blind Forest style, like that the 2D 3D background, like in what's showing there. So how long have you beaten it?
Yeah, I beat it.
Okay.
I beat it in 2 sittings. It is very much like to complete the game is around 4 to 6 hours. If you really want to like get everything in the game like completionist, it might take you like 6 to 8 hours, but like it's a very short experience. It's so sweet though. It feels like almost like if Studio Ghibli kind of made a game. Like it feels like the way they tell a story. It also feels like some of the way they craft environments and such like that, and not to the same extent as, you know, like some of their other projects like Ni no Kuni. This feels more like almost like a Princess Mononoke kind of like
Mononoke,
kind of style, more so than that. But like I really enjoyed a lot of playing Lana. There's no dialogue in this game. Like you don't hear understand you don't understand the language they speak. So like there's no dialogue, but like you feel the weight of the characters' emotions in every single scene. Like you understand that like their life is falling apart. Like you get like it's such a enriching tale, and there's no dialogue. I love that about this game. I think this is a contender for Indie of the Year, if I'm being honest right now.
Yeah, it's small picking so far, but I hope it gets its flowers, because so far like the only indie that I really like sunk my teeth in this year was a DLC, and that was the Return of Castlevania for Dead Cells. So, and obviously because this is just such a humongous AAA year that I feel like indies really have no chance, and I feel like, or at least for like Oxygen, like compared to this would be the perfect time for let's say if Planet of Lana had come out around this time last year, it would completely shine, because what did we get big game in May, June, or July last year? We got nothing. So you would have had like that in the same window that Cult of the Lamb like got its huge following, because it released at that point where we're still waiting for anything big to come out because nothing was coming out. Planet of Lana now comes out at the weird summer that I don't think will ever happen again. That big games from like storied franchises like are all like on top of each other. So, and that's like big for like people that have been following the industry. You will never see another summer like this again. Or I will hope this will show people, hey, you can release games in the summer. Look how well those have sold. So it's not just in the like one sold 10 million copies in like 3 days. The other one in 2 days made like a bunch of copies with like Jedi Survivor, which I want to jump into almost immediately there. But I said, yeah, this has been like a very eventful summer for big games, and it's so weird, and I love it because these are usually backlog times.
It is weird. It's one of those things to where I'm looking at like the way everything is kind of like moving for indie games, because I know you mentioned it a second ago, like there's been some really like there's no oxygen for them, but there's been some really great ones out there. Like Hunt the Night is a fantastic one that combines like a lot of things that what you see in like The Witcher. It's like a 2D
top
version.
down.
Yeah, you can see in the background right here, but like it's a top down Witcher kind of meets Castlevania meets like meets Bloodborne, and it is like it's a weird combination of all those three elements, and it just works so well. The gameplay is so fluid, like the story is really rich, just like The Witcher's lore. It's an amazing game. It's just like no oxygen for it. Really
literally forgot it came out. What was this other one that you were very big on? Have a Nice Death was another really one good. That was like initially got some fast praise, immediately forgotten because it came out literally the same week as Resident Evil 4. Another one of the big games this year. Have
a Nice Death might be one of the most gorgeous games this year, especially in that like the Ori kind of art style that it has. Amazing, and the gameplay is very fast paced. Like it has like that Super Smash Brothers meets like Rogue Legacy 2 kind of gameplay that I really enjoy. And man, like doesn't really even have a story. It's just like straight action gameplay that's so amusing and so fun.
Yeah, and that's one that I'm waiting for the other consoles to show up. I don't want to play that on Switch, and I don't want to play it on my laptop, so that's kind of why I didn't jump there. And there's my dog, like always. But and I feel it also feels like a Game Pass get. Also, you know, it feels like the kind of game that Microsoft will as soon as they announce like the other ports, they're gonna jump on that. So, and I'm also waiting on Silksong, because I don't understand why it's taking them so long to release the sequel to Hollow Knight, and that was going to be also on Game Pass, and they just recently announced that, yeah, we promised it was going to be in the first half of the year. Something happened. It's going to be probably for the next half, but don't count on it. So, just such a mess. But before we dive into Jedi Survivor real quick, another game that I started playing weirdly was Mortal Kombat 9. This was the one that came out in 2011, actually, because I bought it recently at the Facebook Marketplace for like $10, and because I know it's backwards compatible on Xbox, but it's not digital, and I have a Series S, and there used to be a digital version of that game, and then WB for some reason decided to delist it. Like they delist a bunch of games, so I can only play a disc, and I don't have a Series X, so I couldn't. So I was like, my PS3 is still plugged in for some reason, but I have it there because there's still some games, and I'm very old school. Like eventually I always get the mood to want to play something old, and I last played this game back during a PS Now period, when I was trying PS Now and I just wanted to try it. And this is my first time like playing it natively, and it's like, even though that franchise has seen some evolution since 2011, especially with the Injustice games and Mortal Kombat 10 and even Mortal Kombat 11, like going back to the other one and seeing that this was the moment where NetherRealm wanted to turn the perception around Mortal Kombat that had just been going downhill during the PS2 Xbox era. So how big were you in Mortal Kombat, Sebastion?
I'm alright. I've played quite a few of them. I haven't played a Mortal Kombat game in years at this point, but like I enjoy the hype of it. I enjoy the concept of it, but like
it's one of the rare franchises that gets so much hype just by releasing. Just look at how much hype there was with Mortal Kombat 1 just like 2 weeks ago. That's coming out later this year. But yeah, like during the PS2, because I remember it was the Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, Mortal Kombat Deception, Mortal Kombat Armageddon, Shaolin Monks. It was like most of them were good, but like the cachet of Mortal Kombat had been like they were not being respected as fighting games. And the reboot that came on PS3 and 360 in 2011, which is this one, which is technically reboot but not. They just call it Mortal Kombat, but everyone calls it Mortal Kombat 9. This was like them starting like giving a fresh a new number one in comic book terms. but everything's still like the before is still like canon. This was like the beginning of that, and then 9, 10, 11, like from a story perspective, actually made they made some strides in narrative to actually now they are the benchmarks for in fighting games for people that don't want to like do competitives, and God knows I'm not because I'm not that technical, but being able to do like having a reason to engage with the game like as a, like from a single player perspective, it started here. And especially now that we got Mortal Kombat 1 like in the far off, I kind of wanted to like replay all the NetherRealm games. So that in right now when I'm in this limbo currently after having finished Tears of the Kingdom, which you can read my review over at seasongaming.com. Like if you already heard all my praises in the show about that game, I don't need to like belabor the point. I'll just have to say that the ending is one of the coolest endings I've ever seen in a game, shockingly. I don't think you're ever gonna see it because it's like a long game, Sebastion, but I tell you, it's like when it comes to scale and all that, as I was like, oh, I thought Ragnarok had that in the bag, and here comes a contender. So, because if you remember the Ragnarok section of God of War Ragnarok, I was like big and spectacle. I was like, Zelda attempt something like that, and I was like, okay, and I was not expecting that, but yeah. So I'm currently gonna keep playing Final Fantasy 15 and Mortal Kombat 9 as I wait for Street Fighter 6 that comes out tomorrow, which I have to go pre-order it. Actually, I just got the money for Paul because he wants the pre-order bonuses, and then Diablo. As I then wait for Final Fantasy 16 that gets, there was a tease that we might get a demo on the 11th.
Yeah.
And I just hope it's one of those Square Enix style demos that progress carries over to the main game. I would love, yeah, because I don't like playing, like that was my big problem with the Forspoken demo. That was the first.
Diablo right now.
Huh?
Or Diablo.
Or Diablo, yeah, that nothing progressed. So it's like, and they give you so much content, but it's like, why would you want to burn yourself out with that content if you know that all of that is going to be wiped out? Like my EIC Ains, who reviewed Diablo 4 for our side, he spent 70-80 hours on that game, and that and all that's going to be wiped out.
That's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy. I think it's a testament. He says that he wouldn't mind doing all of that again because he enjoyed that game that much. But I have a very different psychology. Like it's very different. Like when I see betas and all that, I just want to see it, how it looks, how it feels. I'm like, cool, I like this. I'm out. I don't want to burn myself out. I learned the hard lesson overplaying the Final Fantasy VII remake demo 3 years ago. I played it and replayed it and replayed because it was so good. And then when the game came out, I was like, oh, it's the same section. And I didn't play it for like a month after it came out because I was so tired of it. So. But yes, but Jedi Survivor, Sebastion. So this game was like you started playing it early on, like when it came out of launch, and then of course because you get many codes from different developers, you had to like put your effort into covering the games that they were giving you, and of course like early on this game was a little undercut, like it came in hot. The PS5 version, not as much as the Xbox version. You played on Xbox Series X. I played on PS5. You suffered some crashes early on, so you're like, I'm gonna wait a little bit. Just for like transparency, you have been telling me and Paul that there has been a really interesting year for you in like the AAA space, because like a lot of like the big games that have been like so celebrated are not like the kind of game that like really connects with you.
No.
Like in the like you understand like the praise was good, like the Resident Evils, the Zeldas, the Dead Spaces. Obviously you tried Resident Evil 4, you said, and I feel that didn't last long. So from what we talk about when I guessed it on your show, but then so then I was like, wait, have you finished Survivor? And you said you haven't, and me and Paul were like, oh, do it, like play it. This is like, your most anticipated game this year is Spider-Man. I was like, if you want that kind of fix now, play Jedi Survivor. Was I wrong?
No, you wouldn't. You were absolutely right. Going with like what you were saying earlier, like to elaborate further, like I'm not. This year in video games, at least up to this point, has been vastly great year for AAA games. But AAA games that are in the survival horror space are like games like Zelda, which is arguably a puzzle game first, and puzzle game survival second, and adventure third. So and I'm not super huge into puzzle games. I know I talked about playing Alana a second ago, but like
those are simple. It's like if it's like Inside, it makes sense because it has puzzles, but they're simple. Like there's a lot of ingenuity you have to find in Zelda, so that makes sense why the that didn't quite click with you, especially since you didn't grow up with the franchise either. So
no, and it's more linear puzzles as well. Like it's like the style of puzzles, like it has one complete goal and one like real application on how you complete that goal. Versus like Tears of the Kingdom, like you can complete like a shrine in any way you possibly see fit.
Yeah, which is insane.
Yeah, it's like. And it's great. It's like your imagination is like you're like a Green Lantern in that world. It's like you're only limited by your
God. Oh my God! Here's what's so funny. You get a power if you go to the depths.
The depths, yeah.
To the depths, and you find like the main mine. That's where you can find like an auto build, which is basically the Green Lantern construct of constructing everything that you have ever built.
That's why.
That's so funny.
I've still been playing Tears of the Kingdom off and on, just to make sure I like don't have an uninformed opinion of that game and stuff like that. But like,
and I'll tell you, it's like now that we're like in the afterglow of like everyone, like to me it's like one of my favorite games ever, if not the top. Like I'm trying to give it time because sometimes you can get like in the heat of the moment, but I know for sure this one resonated with me in a way that Breath of the Wild didn't, because I got gaming depression afterward. Kind of like when you're done, you're like, man, that was so good. I wasn't ready for that, man. Like nothing feels that. And the last time a game did that to me was God of War 2018. So that's why like I knew that, but I still want to like wait a little bit to see like if I'm still feeling that afterglow for calling it my favorite. But I know for sure it's in my top 10. But I know there's like, don't feel bad. I know like it's not clicking with you like the way the internet is like clicking, but it's like that's the beauty with gaming, is like everyone's gold, it's gonna be someone else's silver, and vice versa. You know what I mean?
I know that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what. So like, back to the point of everything. It was like that's the way I was feeling about this year so far. It's like everyone was eating, and I was, like I had.
you were Squidward. No, you're like you're the Squidward meme. It's like you're like looking by the blinds, and you're seeing the whole world being SpongeBob and Patrick having fun outside. Yeah. And you're just like they're being like, why not me?
Exactly. It's just not the games of my genre. Even the games of my genre that came out, such as like Fire Emblem Engage and such as that, like it wasn't Fire Emblem Three Houses, and like it wasn't like a narrative based Fire Emblem game. It was more so like, hey, this is like a celebration of the history of Fire Emblem, and I only played Three. So
Houses. That's not gonna like compute at all. And on top of that, because you like one of our bigger episodes this year, like when you came in for Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah.
And exactly, that was like, like you being like big Harry Potter fan, like you're that preventing you from like really enjoying like seeing how they were taking liberties with the license compared to someone like me that loved the look of it, the production quality of it. But when I finished it, then I was like, yeah, I understand why people are diehard fans of me that I know the movies would take some issues with the liberties they take with the license. So another example.
So. It is, and like it is just to that fact of like, if in Star Wars, like they took some liberties with lightsabers or like with the rules of the Force or anything like that, it rubs people the wrong way, and it's like, like I think that's a credit to Jedi Survivor, and to bring it back to Jedi Survivor is like it feels like it is born in the Star Wars universe. It feels like it
respects the rules. This doesn't do the Last Jedi hold on maneuver like at all. No. Even though there is a section, the best section of the game, that it may feel like that, but it makes sense on the lore that you understand. If you understand anything about a certain group of characters that was introduced in Clone Wars, that you understand that's how it will look for them. So it's like it was just you visualizing how it looks, how those characters move, but even then, like just tonally, Jedi Survivor just like understands like what makes a Star Wars story tick. Yeah, it knows how to be serious. It knows how to it knows how to like have fun. Some of the characters you meet here, I mean Turgle. Come on, like Turtle is so amazing. Voiced by Invader Sim, by the guy that does the voice for Invader Sim. Also, it's like and Cal's story, like they
heartfelt.
So heartfelt. And there is one section, and for anyone listening, I'm gonna timestamp this because obviously me and Paul already gave our big say about Jedi Survivor. That was our favorite game of the year before Zelda came out for both of us, but I still stand at it. Like outside of the Nintendo side, like this was my favorite game of like the big games that so far come out so far. And I feel like a lot of the big moments that can be talked about this game are kind of like spoiler related, so I'm gonna like do just like tiny, I'm gonna put it in the description of like when you can skip ahead. But we're gonna talk some spoilers here with Sebastion since he's beating it.
Sounds good.
So when you texted that you were feeling like that Bode, the big character that's like your companion here, was like Snitch, and me and Paul literally went to our own private chat. We were like, God damn it, he really figured it out, didn't he? because that here's the thing, like for Paul, it caught him completely off guard. To me,
really?
Yeah, to me it was like the last night when they were like all celebrating, he was asking too many questions. That's when I was like, something's up here. And then obviously the thing happened. When that happened, did that still hit you, or did you feel really small? Like, I figured it out, I called it.
No, like I told you kind of like, I think it was like whenever, I can't remember the moment, but it was like kind of early on.
You put a tracker in your thing?
Yeah, whenever he handed you like a beacon to, like, you handed him a beacon to find you, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, he found us really quick on like the planet with I can't
Jeddah.
remember Jeddah with
Cordova and Seer.
Yeah, like he found us really quick, and then I was thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, that was too quick. And then all of a sudden things just started to happen where the Empire were showing up in little places to where like they wasn't previously, like and I was just like, oh, okay, like the Empire is more and more frequently appearing. Why is that? And I was just like, oh, it didn't happen until like Bode started showing up as well, and that kind of led me to think, I was just like, okay, like if I'm writing this, it's like, if I'm writing this, and that's how I always think about like narrative games. I was like, as a writer myself, I'm like, what would I do? And I was like,
the checkup gun scenario.
Like... yeah. It's either like, okay, so Bode has to either be the turncoat, or like one of his old allies is the turncoat because different circumstances they've turned. Well, I was just like, okay, so far I'm not getting anything different other than like the Night Sister, and her, like, and her gravitational pull of her story is like growth. It's one of like, I had to step away in order for me to grow. Okay, so that's natural. Then I came back to Bode, and I was just like, okay, everything he says doesn't necessarily add up. It's like, okay, so he has a daughter. Where would he leave his daughter if he's on the run for the Empire? And that's where I started thinking. I was just like, he's not gonna leave his little girl with like
and Miranda.
He's not gonna leave them with the rebels. They're in just as much danger. And I was just like, where's the only safe place for a child in this universe? It's with the Empire. And when I just thought about that line of thought, I was just like, she's with the Empire the whole entire time, and he's basically Snitch. And that's how like that's how the story kind of plays out. But like, that's how I initially thought about it. Like, cause I even paused the game and I was just like, something's not adding up with Bode. Yeah. The Jedi thing threw me off though.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, to me, like when that happened, kind of what I was thinking was happening at first was that you saw like when you're fighting Dagan Gera, and you go through like the kind of like Arkham style, like going into the mind, like while you're battling him. Kind of part of me was wondering if like if Dagan had pulled one on us, and that he had killed Dagan, and he was like using the force to kind of like trick us into thinking he had survived because he had the sword. But no, it was like, if you go back, that Bode stayed before. He was like, I was like, I'll catch up. Just give me a second. So it makes sense that he would get the lightsaber from there. So, but I feel like even though yes, you figuring that out makes me understand. Yeah, it's probably predictable. I feel the way it still plays out is still surprising. Like some of the events that happened in that moment, him killing Eno Cordova, like that happens and then the big like secret, which is that you get a big sequence where you play a seer.
Yeah,
in like a big in that big siege, and then the big climactic battle with Darth Vader, which I'll tell you, because I said this to Paul, I enjoy the fight. It's tough. It was like it took me 4 tries to beat him, because it's like that dude was rough. Like part of me feels like you use Vader again. Kind of like we talked about when I guessed it on your show when we talked about Jedi Fallen Order fight, like in 2023, and what our thoughts were. Like the Vader moment to me was like such an amazing moment in Jedi Fallen Order. It's such a big hype that heightened that game, that him showing up here was like, you could have hold. I don't know. I don't know. It was like I didn't feel the same hype like seeing him again. It would just felt like, it's again here, and and the way that he kills you it seemed a little cheap in a way, because it's like you completely like beat him, even though Seer had already told Beatty, yeah, I'll be behind you, I'll escape you, but then suddenly she decides to like give the killing blow, and it just so happens that Vader had like this lightsaber just ready to just stab her when she was coming in. So it was like, and then when you think about the fact that around the same time Vader went through Obi-Wan, like this like this game syncs up with the Obi-Wan TV show. So did Vader really like get beat twice? Once by Obi-Wan and then by Seer? That to me is like me that likes the idea that Vader in this time period is like this magnetic, terrifying presence that rarely gets beaten. That to me felt a little wrong. Like I let go of the fact that Ahsoka in Rebels and Obi-Wan in his show like beat Vader because there are people that know him, but when others beat him, it just felt weird. But the emotional impact of what happens afterwards,
amazing.
Like Cal like sensing everything that happened through the Force and carrying her, was like that hit so hard. And everything after that game that became so focused on him trying to find revenge on Bode and what it meant for him to like fall into the dark side. I feel Jedi Survivor is one of the greatest representations in Star Wars media when it comes to like having a Jedi succumb to the dark side outside of Darth Vader, and with even more nuance.
I'm gonna take it a step further. I think this is lining up to be one of the best trilogies in all of Star Wars.
Oh yes, absolutely. Especially if the third game that it's obviously coming, it's of the same quality. It's like no contest. Like this will be like the best trilogy we've gotten since 1983 with Return of the Jedi.
I think it might even challenge that, because like I look at like A New Hope and such like that, and I think like and I know one's a video game, one's a movie, but I think if you made a movie version of like Jedi Fallen Order, like a lot of people, and if you did it tit for tat with like the way the game interprets it, I feel like that movie can challenge A New Hope's movie
it would be the ones that finally challenges the original trilogy that are always in such a pedestal. Yeah, especially because I love Return of the Jedi, but I feel Return of the Jedi is kind of like the weakest of those three movies of New Hope, Empire, and Return. It's like the highest of Return of the Jedi is so high. Throne Room is like God tier. Ewoks brings it down, like the Jabba the Hutt like heist of Han Solo and all that. It takes a little too long. So it's like Return of the Jedi has like those high highs, but also has its low lows compared to the other ones. So eventually, if the third game nails it with this, like. Just in story alone, it's like that. Still, to me, like in the AAA level, Jedi Survivor this year is the best story.
Oh yeah,
it could easily be beaten by everything that's coming out soon. I feel that Spider-Man later this year, just on track record alone, could be the one. Could be the one at least in the AAA level. But it's like the ending. Here's how I describe like the Jedi Survivor ending. It's like compared to the last one, it feels quote unquote anticlimactic, but it's perfect for this game.
Oh yeah,
it's like, because it's like it's like the long gunslinger like Western, you getting revenge over something that happened and not having to be this grand thing. It's just that intimate moment, and that intimacy is felt when you then see the funeral at the end, and then you hear like the more solemn way of the Vader the Vader funeral music from Return of the Jedi, and you see it play in this game, but like in a more like somber tone, and then that whole thing of like Cal like staring there where everything's like fast forwarding around him is just like such a perfect representation of grief, and
it is,
and how like and where he leaves him, he has the dark side in him, and you keep using it, so it's like he's finally a gray Jedi. This is what we were hoping they were teasing when Rey in Last Jedi, it was kind of like that her whole interaction with Kylo Ren, and then they eventually just chickened out at the end with that movie. I feel this game like actually committed to the bit of putting the character there, and that's why like, to me it's like it's such an incredible Star Wars story that having experienced it around the same time that I finally got to watch Andor, I'm like, man, it's like it feels nice getting this kind of more mature, but obviously not adult, but like a more serious, kind of like more pensive, more thought-provoking Star Wars stories in the medium, especially at a time where the Star Wars as a franchise right now is so hit and miss, like for many people. So
it is, and you know, like the crazy thing to me is like I want to ask you like a couple of questions while we're on this subject. I feel like the game, taking it a step back all the way to the beginning, did a really cool like service for people by doing a time skip from Jedi Fallen Order. Like,
absolutely.
yeah, it's not set after the immediate events. It's like years later, and I feel like us being able to catch up to where Cal's been and where the rest of the crew has been, like, added to the flavor of the story versus like
it's so important for Star Wars to get time jumps. That was the problem of Force Awakens to The Last Jedi. It happens minutes after. And because it's a trilogy, then the next movie jumps ahead a year, but there's like not much story there. When you do the time skips, there's always kind of like the inferred background that you get from like the story that's presented, and that's intriguing because it's like it creates a sense of mystery. What happened to him? It's like, why did they separate? And like this game's like slowly seeing how the Mantis crew kind of like started going their separate ways, even though there's like this. One of the problems here is the fact that there was actually a novelization that's actually canon, Jedi Battle Scars that came out, so there is story there that's kind of like canonical, that it's inferred here, like what happened to Grease with his arm.
Yeah,
that was like that was put in that book. But that's the beauty. You need to do time skips with Star Wars. Like, you need those time skips because that's where the richness comes from, and how you can keep furthering expanding things. Like, I hope the next game is also a time skip. Imagine if like if Boat's daughter now is like grown up, and we see like what
teenager,
at least a teenager that it's clear she has the Force in her. And it's like, that was such an like, even though we had heard about the daughter, getting to meet the daughter is like was so huge at emphasizing that Bode really wasn't a villain. He really wasn't.
No.
It's like, it's again the greatness. It's like he was a good guy that worked for the good guys, that had to like fend for himself and the family when everything went to crap. And even still, like, everything he was doing for his family. So like, from his perspective, you understand why he was doing it. Even though he got so caught up on that instead of accepting that he did wrong, he doubled down and fought you and Marin at the end, even at the behest of his daughter saying don't do it. So,
you know, like it reminds me of two sayings in the world. It's like the road to heaven is paid, like the road to hell is paid by good intentions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the phrases it reminds me of. And then it's like, we are always the heroes in our own story, because to him, Bode is just like, he's a father willing to protect his daughter at all costs. It's like, for him, like Cal, even though like it was an obstacle, who later became a friend, who then became the villain that's preventing him from actually protecting his daughter. Because like, in a way, you know, like, Bode's not wrong in the way of, in the sense that, where like, if the hidden path like use this new hidden planet to basically, you know, like be one of their saving points, one of their like havens, so to speak, it's not too much longer before the Empire like infiltrates that.
Yeah,
Bode's not wrong. It's just like Bode's logic and the way he executed his plan is evil.
Exactly. So that's and that's kind of, again, the brilliance of this game's story, is that you can read those shades of gray. Like, Jedi Fallen Order was a little bit more broad in the strokes that it was painting, even though it started getting into the philosophy of like the failures and successes of the Jedi Order, like near the end. That was kind of like, it was attempting to try to paint more than what it was initially attempting, and that was appreciated. But I feel like Jedi Survivor takes that even further in almost every facet. So, and they set the bar high. It's like, this really was a leap. This game really was an absolute leap in quality from the last one. Obviously, it launched, unfortunately, even with its 6-week delay, it launching with those technical issues. It was unfortunate what it did to the discourse initially, especially around the PC version, because the underlying game inside, like within this, is like such a massive improvement over the last one, especially like after we had just played Jedi Fallen Order recently and getting to experience this one immediately. It's like, you felt the leap. You absolutely felt it's one of those leaps. And I'm pretty sad that, just like similar to Horizon, that gets overshadowed. It's so funny, like this year's Horizon content, which we actually were at the single player experience, you and I talked about Burning Shores, immediately got overshadowed by this game, and then immediately this game got overshadowed by Zelda, the same way as Zelda overshadowed Horizon. I feel like this, especially after everyone snubbed Jedi Fallen Order from Game of the Year last time because it came out at the cutoff time for the Game Awards, so it was like everyone just like decided to not like include it. That's why it's so funny that you mentioned about Untitled Goose Game winning Game of the Year. That was the year, because there was like no clear Game of the Year. So for some reason, that one, developers really gravitated towards that one for some reason over at the DICE Awards. But But yeah, I feel like this is I really hope that by the time we come to like Game of the Year tallying, I hope people don't forget Jedi Survivor.
Respawn, I hope it's more varied than just like Zelda running away with most of the categories, because like while I can acknowledge that a lot of like the people who vote for Game of the Year in the games media is probably going to lean heavily towards Zelda for Game of the Year. It's like there are a lot of different games that do a lot of different things better than Zelda across the board.
It's like what happened. I hope it's like what happened last year with Game of the Year, that Ragnarok, because that's the thing, like Ragnarok won a lot except the big one. Like, because Ragnarok did graphics better than Elden Ring, did story better than Elden Ring, soundtrack debatable, because I really love that's the thing. Here's the thing, like knowing the things that I know you didn't get to Elden Ring because I know, because when I knew you didn't beat Star Scorched Radon, that's when I knew that you were missing so much that you didn't see that was even more epic. It's like, I feel that goes to penalties, but the Bear McCreary is also amazing soundtracks. Some of the, especially the Ragnarok theme, amazing. Accessibility, obviously that was gonna win, but then like kind of like what I was telling you, like why even though Ragnarok winning all of that didn't win this time around was that the thing that impressed people back in 2018 was that Ragnarok eliminated the stigma that a very cinematic, story-heavy open world game can't play well. Because that was when Last of Us was winning the Game of the Year. It was like it was being crowned for being the closest a game has like emulated Hollywood. At that time, it was more impressive. The more like the industry tried to lean that way to production values and all of that, there was always like, oh, they're just movies that you play. That was always kind of like the criticism they wanted to throw at that kind of game. Debatable. Here's the thing, Uncharted, I don't think Uncharted really plays that well, but everything around it is so good. No, for real. Like, I feel the only one that actually plays really well it's Lost Legacy.
I can get that.
And so the later ones.
Oh,
so.
Okay. So 3, 4, and Lost Legacy are the ones you thinking.
So right? four and Lost Legacy are the ones that, from a gameplay perspective, I feel you can feel a little bit of a better leap, but it's still not you don't play those games for the gameplay. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so it's like,
man, I think those games have really good gameplay, especially the rope mechanics and the way you like stealth through things.
But there's so much downtime within that game. So it's not like I would even argue, going back to Uncharted 2 and 3, there's like more quick action because those games are shorter, but mechanically those games are inferior. So, and what I love most about Lost Legacy is its tightness. It allows you to get an equal dose of exploration and combat compared to like something like 4, that there's so much of that game that is just climbing around, rope around. Even the rope mechanics fun, especially when in the combat sections, like that game actually takes its time. So but God of War was the one where you can actually recommend. It's like, there's a really good story here, but also the gameplay is like shockingly solid for the kind of game it is. That's why it won Game of the Year there. But the further we have gone from that, I feel like now that people are getting, even though people praise production value, people praise storytelling, people praise all of that, they're still rewarding it. Is like what people are looking for is like, what's the next quote unquote evolution? And that's kind of like what, and that's kind of where we go into game design, kind of perspective. And that's why Elden Ring won last year, and that's why Zelda right now it's carrying the baton. We'll see because people forget this. A Zelda game came out in 2011. What won Game of the Year that year? Skyrim. Because that game revolutionized open worlds back then. So
I hope Starfield is like that. You know, I have my doubts, but
I have my doubts because based on current Bethesda's track record. But again, it's like Zelda releasing in a single year doesn't mean it automatically wins Game of the Year. Breath of the Wild was the only time that went like won unanimously based on how that game like caught the industry by storm. And remember, I love Tears of the Kingdom. I think Breath of the Wild's overrated. I'm that one. So it's like, even back then, it's like, I know that for a fact because I beat that game and I didn't feel the same way I felt after I beat this latest one. So that's why I know that to me it wasn't like, I praise it for bringing back exploration, bringing back like kind of like authorship into how you explore it into games, because a few games take that. Elden Ring took that. It's like when you see Elden Ring, then you can see, it's like they got inspired by this. You can trace it where the seed was planted, and now you're seeing some other gamers trying to get that. Ghost of Tsushima, I feel like it's the most Ubisofty game open world in recent times that actually takes the lessons of Breath of the Wild in a way that works, because it's like a lot of fog, Like you're actually exploring it. It's like you actually, it's like you use the world to navigate it, the wind and all that. It's like diegetic. It's like Ubisoft games are not diegetic. You need the maps, or if not, you're gonna get lost. That's like thoughtful game design. So that's why I feel like I feel games this year, like bringing it back to Game of the Year. I know for sure this can be bad. Zelda, I tell you, I'm putting it here. It's not gonna win best story. It's not gonna win best graphics. It's not gonna win anything in regards to any presentation. Not even accessibility. But when it comes to like the big one, I feel this one just on the whole, like what critics want is like what's next for gaming. Like what's the next game design leap? This is the one that I look, and I hope other games are able to, like, on top of showing what game design can do, on top of that have like the great story and the visuals, because I know that what makes you struggle on top of the puzzle elements of Tears of the Kingdom, especially you being Killmonger, be like, is this your king? Like when when you tweeted that, it's like I understand, especially when I know some of the things that complete the experience for you. It's like you. And also knowing that you're also bouncing between that one and seeing the Predator games back and forth, I know you noticed the downgrade in visual quality. Like we're not focusing just in Tears of the Kingdom, but playing something in the newer machines. So that makes sense, because it's like the surface level like bells and whistles are not there in Tears of the Kingdom. They're simply not, because they can't. It's the hardware's old. The fact that it runs at all and it's even as big as it is the miracle in itself. But still, like, I'm really hoping, kind of, here's the hope, that people don't disregard story, that people don't disregard like the how beautiful things can happen, but to understand that what gamers really want on top of that is like, you're not gonna like win gamers over just by being pretty anymore. I feel like the game itself also has to be something that can really inspire the imaginations of gamers, so that on top of being like running so smooth, because again, like Horizon Burning Shore is like objectively the better looking game than Tears of the Kingdom. Is like, that's fact. That's just objective fact. But it's still like Tears of the Kingdom so like triple the time of in shorter amount, because like for many gamers, like they don't care much about like, oh, this looks old and all that. As long as it's unplayable. If a game's unplayable, people are gonna let people know about that. Look at Redfall, which we're gonna talk about a little later. But it's like, as long as like the game design like inspires like a level of imagination, or feels like something that feels like gaming is taking steps forwards, I feel that's the thing that developers have to focus more going forward. On top of it, because right now so many games are so pretty. It's rare you get a game on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X that looks like absolute trash. The recent times, just in this last month, we got two, Redfall and Golem. Those are like those are rare exceptions for like in those machines. Those are unacceptable. Like those games are unacceptable for them to play out and run like they did. So
yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot to unpack with what you just said there. It's like, you know, in the Game of the Year thing, hopefully like people do have like a little bit of standards when it comes to like you said, story, visual quality, like narration, sound design, because like whereas like Zelda's like music is pretty good, I'll admit that. It's just like I don't necessarily know if it like has the scale of like, I guess you say theatrical scale of like Jedi Survivor.
Yes,
like,
there's some parts that I know for sure you haven't got to yet. Like the big thing that I told you, that when I got all the tears and the thing that was revealed there was like such a holy cow, that's one of the coolest story moments I ever experienced in a game. But those are hidden. They're fleeting. Whereas other games are more like that's underlined, because their focus is being Hollywood. It's like trying to make the cinematic presentation in a video game as they can. So that's why other games to me do that better. So
you know, like, and I guess one of the things that kind of opened my eyes about this a little bit more is Planet of Lana as well, because I play a lot of indie games, and a lot of indie games, you know, have hit or miss. Like some have no story at all, and then some do have like a magnificent, almost AAA level story. And like recently, Planet of Lana features a heartfelt narrative where there's not any dialogue, very similar to Link in that regards. It's like the main character doesn't really speak very much, but the way that main character emotes like puts Link to shame. The way like the way that character feels the burden of everything, the way that character feels lost and such like that.
Yeah, because in Planet of Lana, I bet it's like kind of like they're using that to like establish that character, whereas Link from the first game in 1986 to this, he's a reflection of you. Exactly. So
yeah, I get it. It is using that to put a character over, but on the same point is it's like this character, like they don't even tell you the character's name in Planet of Lana. It's almost a reflection of you as that character. What would you do in this situation, sort of thing. So I'm like, it's like I do feel like Tears of the Kingdom right now gets a Nintendo bump, so to speak, because like
there is because the Nintendo bump is in the fact that you can easily hand wave a bunch of stuff, like some technical problems. But here's the thing, like from a technical perspective, it's still more solid than even a game like Redfall in recent times. And the fact that game in 140 hours never crashed, that's incredible especially for a game, Jedi Survivor. You immediately, your first experience with that game was crashing, and that game crashed to me twice. It's like there's like a level of yes, Nintendo can sometimes get overpraised, and I know for sure they have gotten overpraised. In fact, I feel like people weren't hard enough on Pokemon last year.
No, they started it off just because it was like, oh, okay, man, like, this is an anomaly. We're just going to let them have it. It's like they skirted that off. But like going back to Tears of the Kingdom here is like, I have this in my background right now. You're looking at Tears of the Kingdom photos. No one's calling this gorgeous. Like, no one's going to call this gorgeous.
Here's the thing, depending. From an artistic perspective, it has a picturesque quality in some spots. You can go to my review. I actually took some screenshots that I personally feel like from a screenshot perspective is beautiful, but sometimes from moment to moment, there's a blandness to some areas of Tears of the Kingdom that no one's going to say these are the best graphics of the year. If someone tells you that, they're nuts. It's like if someone tells you, exactly. So from an art direction, I feel it's like it makes it a lot for it to not be a bad looking game, but it's not the best looking game. But again, it's like when you see, it's kind of like what I tweeted at you, and you quote tweeted and you kind of quote tweeted me on that. It's like obviously not to dunk and all that. No, when I told you about it, like read what people are actually like praising specifically. It's like definitely for sure. It's like you never see anyone saying this is the prettiest game ever. This is the best story ever. It's like. Again, it's kind of like what I told you when we had that conversation after we recorded last week when we were talking about this game. I wish we had recorded because it was actually an interesting conversation. Hopefully you were not too starving from Chick-fil-A that time because you needed to go eat, but we just kind of got into it. It's like, it's definitely like the game design of Tears of the Kingdom is the one that really is like the one standout of the package that is so like impressive to me. That's kind of where it's getting its flowers, but it's for sure not getting its flowers on anything else. Like the story, I will say, like as someone that has played all the Zelda games, is probably my favorite. After like I hit all those moments, like it has like some of the most cool, especially. And now I understand a little bit. It's like this game is not following a through line from any Zeldas, but it plays on your expectations of what the usual tropes are and how they subvert those, and then has some moments that you're like, wow, I couldn't believe a Zelda game could be like this epic in some times, like in some specific moments. But I'm still not gonna say it's the best story of the year. It has some of the coolest moments, but again, there's nuance there. But I tell you, I'm gonna like, I gave this game, by the way, people, I reviewed this game, I gave this game a 10 over at Season Gaming. Yeah, I still like, I didn't give a 10 to technical proficiency. I didn't like, I called those things out. I feel from game design, this is a game that I'm so curious to see how developers respond to, and they put the bells and whistles that the other ones are known for. That there are developers that we know do great storytelling, that do great production value, that they do great everything that makes a game look like from the surface like so cool. How could they make a game in game design even more malleable than we already is? Like less static, less how can I say this? I don't want to say stale, because saying something is stale is like an insult. I feel like, because but yes, it's a game that it's insane to me. Like seeing like Tears of the Kingdom has the malleability of a Fortnite and a Minecraft and a Goat Simulator games. That's
exactly what I was gonna say next. I was like, it feels like they just took elements from all those like creative games and just put it in an open world.
And that's the thing. Like, look how those games operate. Because those games can only work because the games are intentionally janky. They have to be that way because they're allowing things, because they have to allow things to be as malleable as they can. The fact that the game is allowed to be this malleable with Tears of the Kingdom in a way that feels congruent with it, even like it's designed, even though it's like it sometimes feel like it's not, like some, like we're talking about the shrines, like how do you resolve some of them? You're like, was I supposed to do it like that and the game just let me? That's crazy, because that's like the amount of man hours. Like, these are the kind of things that you sometimes go to the seams of games, and that's what crashes the games completely. Like break scripting. There's actually a moment in Jedi Survivor that when you're in the jungles, that if you use a power that lets you like attacks an enemy that blasts you through the world, the game stops and be like, you broke the game. You can continue, but it's like you broke the sequence. It's like so many games are like tied into sequencing that if you sometimes break the sequence, that's when the brokenness happens. That's like literally Bethesda games. Those games give you so much freedom, but sometimes by doing so many things in the story, the game then breaks. And then sometimes like if you disorder something in like a wrong way, then it's like you're potentially liable to not be able to finish the game because you broke it. Somehow Zelda allows you to break it in a way that is like within the parameters of like the design, and that it's insane. It's like that's the one thing outside of like visuals and presentation and all of that is like the most impressive thing that they do, and it's the one thing that I want to see like, and not breaking and not crashing at all. I want developers to really take a look and be like, you need to, with the games that you put out, at the very least that you have way more power than they do. Your games have to be functional. There's been like so much functionality, like inconsistency in so many AAA games, like in not just this year but in previous years, that is like, we pay $70 for this. Like at the very least, the things need to be functional, especially if even if your game is like even less ambitious. So it's
this makes me feel like Insomniac doesn't get enough credit. You know, like because I was about to say, I'm like, they put out quality games that you don't hear about them being buggy messes when they come out. And
Miles Morales was the actually.
I had a really good experience at launch with Miles.
It crashed on me twice, and I know for sure that Rift Apart is considered their buggiest game. Because
really?
It actually is. I remember here because I didn't have my PS5, but I kept looking at videos of the clipping that was happening because of messes. Yeah, it was case by case basis on the PS5 because the PS5's SSD is weird. But and also keep in mind COVID. It was work from home. So many games that came out from the work from home environment came in with more bugs than they did. But before those two, Spider-Man 2018, pristine.
I didn't hear anything about the Miles Morales or Ratchet and Clank. I'll take your word for it, but
that's the thing. They weren't widespread, but they were happening. So
it's one of those things to where I'm like, I see some other developers out there, Forza comes out every time, and then they nail it, absolutely nail it out of the park.
And that one, because it's a racing game, people like to underplay their achievements, which is sad.
And I get it. It's just, to me, I'm like, hey, okay, you put out a game, it doesn't really have very many bugs. Okay, clap. You did what you were supposed to. No, we're not going to dock you points for that. I completely understand that. But I'm like, to me, I'm, this is on the outside looking in. I know it's a disagreeing opinion, and I completely understand that. Yeah. It's hard for me to get impressed with a game of this scale where you just basically have a very similar game that you had last time, but you changed up like 6 powers. You did change those up, but those powers were essentially like powers from Minecraft and other games like Fortnite and such like that. And then and then add in the fact that you're able to warp through a solid ceiling. And then
to be fair with that, having to clip through geometry, another thing that breaks games, and it's congruent of the design. So
I'm also not super impressed with that because you do go through a semi-loaded screen at when you go up there, it is a 15 to 30 second load screen. If it was instantaneous like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart,
if it had SSD, holy crap. This is again why I tell you, is the other guys should be happy that Nintendo doesn't play with power, because if this game was on an SSD and all that and did all of that and looking even sharper than it does, then it's it would expose everyone else to be they're using your same technology. Why can't you do that? Do you understand? It's kind of
I understand what you're saying. It's just that's kind of what I'm saying as well. On the flip side of it, it's hard for me to be impressed with it when I'm okay, I kind of can see the wizard behind the curtain there. I'm okay, you can go through the ceiling, but you have to go through a load screen. Albeit you've it's almost like the elevator scene you normally see in Mass Effect games, where you just step into an elevator and it gives you the illusion that you're going up.
Yeah. Only with the difference that now you can have a million elevators here to literally everything on top of you. So it's there's no limits, and that's kind of what's crazy is in other kinds of games you would have preset sections, kind of like you were mentioning in Mass Effect. It's you need to go to the specific elevators to do that. In this game, is somehow it has all these million permutations that don't break when they easily could.
I get it. Yeah, it's just I'm also not impressed because I feel like it's empty. Like I feel like a lot of the world is like so empty in the sense to where like okay, you can go through a ceiling and come up because there's nothing up there to obstruct it. You know, like there's like I can go up to a mountain and okay, when I get up to the mountain, I might find a little rock and place that rock in a certain place and I get a Korok seed for it. But for the most part, the rest of that mountain is like empty except for some enemies on the platform below. It's like they, you know, I see little things to where I'm like, I'm just,
or a potential cave that again gives you takes you through like a massive quest line, because there's like hundreds of side quests in this game, which is kind of insane. Like,
yeah, I get it. It's just like I you know, like it's again, it's outside. It's like it's a different like perspective on this. It's just like you know, we come off of Horizon Forbidden West, and I'm impressed by those side quests, like because like a lot of those side quests feel like they can be the main quest in a shorter game.
What's the difference there? Narrative.
It is narrative. It is very much narrative there, and it's like it, and you know, like that is, and I get it, it's not the focus here, but I'm like
but again, it's taste. And that's why, like, you're not wrong. In like coming it from that perspective, because obviously this game, I'm not saying it doesn't have a story, because it actually does, more than the last one. Breath of the Wild had none. It had backstory that you could pursue if you wanted to have, but it wasn't even important. You only had like one goal. But with this one, it's like other games is like the main reason why you play them is the narrative, and this game has enough story to get you going, but the point is the act of playing, more than just because you play Horizon quests. You play them because you want to learn more. You want to get more story, and that's kind of like the big secret for what makes Tears of the Kingdom different than the other ones, and how like it feels, for why it resonates with so many people, is the fact that when you make a game so narrative focused, it means that it's like all contorted around the story, whereas when the narrative focus on something like this one is like simple, but then it's like at the mercy of how you can like engage with it, and makes it like this infinitely replayable game. And it's like getting a toy box.
You are the story. Yeah,
exactly. You're the story. So, and again, it's like the beauty of gaming, and this is kind of like what I love about gaming, is that you can have both.
Yeah, it's just one feels like it's under attack all the time. Like,
the ones that you love.
Yeah, it's like, can we be real here? Let's have a real moment to where like one feels like it's held to a different standard, when the other one is like, oh, we can create things and we can do whatever we want at any given time, but you know, like we okay, we have no parameters here, we can do just anything. Like,
and I think that the difference there is like, again, how long has Nintendo been in the industry for like freaking forever, and also that they had the kind of like that reputation that, you know, you don't go there for stories, you know, you don't go there for the bells and whistles, you know, because they're basically your Henry Fords. They're the ones that set the foundations for many of games. Like a lot of like what we love about gaming came from the original Zelda for action adventure and Ocarina of Time. Like people like praise From Software games. Who was the one that did it first? Ocarina of Time, like setting you like in the 3D space with like the kind of lock on and all of that. Is like they're the ones that why like they get that kind of respect, because you know gaming wouldn't exist without them. I would agree that then other ones maybe get a little too much disrespect. I will say also that what company out of like the big three is very synonymous with like the high production value, story over everything? Sony.
It's PlayStation, yeah. But
exactly.
Like,
and right now, because they're at the top, they're like the kings of the mountain, selling all of those and acting like they're like above everything. Why do you like, let's just say this, I didn't see any attacks about Jedi Survivor as a story-based game like I'm seeing people trying to bring down Spider-Man.
Yeah,
so you understand. So
you want to bring down the king. I get that completely, but even outside of PlayStation, let's just talk about like just general, like even just Nintendo and third parties and such like that. Like Nintendo, like I would be okay with that if they were just like, we're gameplay first, we will never put out a game with a story, but then you put out Xenoblade, which shows me you're capable of doing it.
And not made by Nintendo, by the way. Monolith.
Yeah,
they just polish it.
It is. I understand. It's like, you know, like I get it. It's that's why I said third party, by the way. It's like and third party. But I'm like, if you are going to put the Nintendo brand on it and Nintendo exclusive on it, it makes me feel like you're capable of doing that, you know? Like, and then if you're capable of doing that, that means you can be held to the same standard as everyone else.
Yeah, this is why I would love for this scenario where we would still be in the same area like they were back in GameCube. They were held by the same standards as the PS2 and Xbox because they were all playing in the same playing field. And in fact, in many places, GameCube was actually outperforming PS2 in power.
Yeah,
so it's like they definitely picked their own lane afterwards, and again, like a lot of people use that as both. We can say it's an excuse, especially from your perspective. You would love them to be held as the same standards, and I feel like they can be held at the same standard when it comes to like actual functionality, like the way many hand wave. I have to give IGN their props. They gave Scarlet and Violet a 6.
Yeah.
Like they and while the Game Informers gave it 8.3s and GameSpot gave it an 8, and I'm like, you can look at videos of like what's happening, right?
I legitimately couldn't see my legendary Pokemon when I was riding it.
Exactly. So it's like in those areas, I'm like, in when it comes to the basic functionality of video games, there's like the standard has to be equal for all of them. That's and that's kind of where it's crazy that then a game that I know like Tears of the Kingdom that is so much bigger than a Pokemon and all that has none of those like functionality issues. Even then some games that absolutely look prettier and all of that is like it's like wizardry what's happening there, that it may not look as flashy, but in the hands of other developers we've seen it just crashing and burning. So it's like, again, it's like I feel like there's obviously the taste perspective of things, and obviously like you have you definitely value narrative a lot, and
I do, but I value gameplay. You see me play Have a Nice Death. It's one of my favorite games. Exactly.
But when it comes to like the AAA side, because obviously like Have a Nice Death indies, like that's what they have, because it's definitely like playing in the smaller area compared to like the AAA perspective, which, to be fair, until Nintendo recently came back with force with the Switch, because remember, Nintendo was like irrelevant during an entire generation with like the Wii U because of of them like pursuing of the Wii U. Exactly. So it's like because people always known them as kind of like the builders, they expect them to set the template that then they know the other ones that do narrative and all of that, then they're gonna grab, reshape, put their own seasoning, and there you go. That's always been kind of like how people treat it, especially when they are the ones that then. Obviously, I sent you the article that IGN wrote when they were asking like what developers, and then obviously your retort is like, but they also like praised Untitled Goose Game, which is still like, from what I understand, they all picked like why that one got Game of the Year was because there was no unanimous for one of DICE. And they were like, what's the one that out of all the ones that they look the most fun, and they picked that one. So that's kind of why that one won. But I know it's like that article was like really interesting seeing it, because they're like, we're not gonna be able to do like what Zelda does, like because a lot of these things feel very specific to this game. But now we understand, like just seeing the player reception of things, that games that like can like touch the inner child of a gamer, a feeling like it allows them to do things that is crazy that it allows them to do, is like, if we can get that philosophy and see how we can like mix it with like our strengths, storytelling and all that, it's like that's what makes me so excited, because it's like anyone that just wants to carbon copy Tears of the Kingdom, just like being like, let's build everything, let's build B2 ships, let's do like mechanics that we can crucify Korax and send like walking through, is like some of the insanity that happens with that game. But it's like many people are gonna try to do that, but because they don't have the amount of money that Nintendo has, that the amount of time that they let this game. This game was done last year. They let them a full year to just polish. Exactly. It's like other developers don't do that because they need those games out, because that's how they make their money. Obviously, Nintendo has now that with the Mario movie, which was pretty awesome, I'll admit, and now it's like such a big earner. And also the Switch selling by itself somehow, like they got kind of like the indie community like supporting the Switch like they do. The whatchamacallit, some of the exclusives they had selling over time,
Yeah, the longevity of the Switch and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it is a very interesting question. And like for me, it's like you're a video game company at the end of the day. Like we just because Tesla's doing something different than Ford and Toyota doesn't mean they're still not making cars. You know what I'm saying? Like
yes.
Yeah, and it's one of those things to where I'm like, okay, we held Nintendo to a standard that is good. Like we pick and choose when we want to put the Nintendo crutch card, and when we want to put the Nintendo oh man, Nintendo's killing it. Like Nintendo's selling like 10,000 copies, 10 million copies of Mario Kart. They're absolutely killing it. No one does it like Nintendo. Tears of the Kingdom, like three days selling 10 million copies. No one does it like Nintendo. But man, Nintendo's so underpowered. That's why Scarlet and Violet happened like this. That's why we're probably going to get that's probably why we get games like Pikmin 4 to where it looks kind of like we would accuse any other studio of being DLC at that point, whereas there's only 2 new Pikmin in the game and such like that. We would accuse any studio. We nailed them to the wall.
And that's why I tell is that the hypocrisy towards Nintendo is clearly there. Yeah. Tears of the Kingdom is the only time that I'm waving it off a little bit because I see it's just in the game design what it did. But again, I said it clearly. You've seen me here. I'm not the one saying best story, best visuals, best soundtrack. It's again, it's I do know the things that are worth that are worth praising for or that game, which for game design is huge because gaming is gaming. But again, it's now moving forward. And again, I also agree. There's an extra harshness to other companies that sometimes feel unwarranted. But I feel in this PlayStation side right now is because they're the guys on top and they're gonna do everything in their power to try to sabotage them. I feel it's insane to me how no one talks about God of War Ragnarok anymore.
Nah, man, it is insane to me.
And here's the thing: did 2018 make a bigger impact on me? Yes, I will agree with that. Was Ragnarok objectively a better game? Yes, it is. I haven't replayed it, obviously because it's a much longer game. It has some moments that upload that were not in the last one, but it's that was still a pretty impressive piece of gaming that happened last year, and it's no one talks about it because on top of taking the advantage that Elden Ring won the zeitgeist, now it's everyone's just trying to undermine it. Again, Lord King over the Iron Lord's podcast calling it always DLC. In fact, he intentionally because Lord Carnito mentioned it in his Defining Duke episode, and I had to go look when they did Game of the Year how he intentionally sabotaged the Game of the Year discussion for God of War Ragnarok with vetoing and all that, and the other ones didn't want to waste their vetoes even though they wanted to give it as flowers, but he didn't. It's obviously he's that kind of personality, but it's if you go to your For You pages and all that, that's many people have that kind of same mentality to try to sabotage those kind of things. So there is that kind of standard, and to me that feels wrong in a way because it's yes, Jim Ryan and PlayStation deserves a lot of crap, but not the developers. They're the ones doing hard work, and again, Ragnarok again, it's even though I had my about phase when I was because remember I went to your show the first time I said God of War Ragnarok is my favorite one. It's just as time came by I was why am I so much more attracted to just keep thinking about Elden Ring, going back to Elden Ring and all that? And that's why I was oh Christ, that game did something. The other game
and taste change over time too. It's what you crave for a game changes over time.
Exactly. And to me it's it's hard Ragnarok was the exception. I got a really good story. It's been so long since I've gotten so impressed by stories in games anymore. I feel I've seen it all when it comes to game stories. So I need other things to impress me so that those things are just the seasoning instead of the main course. So yeah, there is worthy conversation to have about that. It kind of makes me wish that PlayStation was in second place.
So and you also you as a gamer who also appreciates longevity in gameplay, you're a Destiny player as well. You playing games where you can get your
I would blame Destiny broke me forever when it comes to it's actually Destiny would have been one that actually proved me even though Destiny does have sometimes good story. I sing the praises of the Witch Queen last year. I dragged out the latest expansion through the coals for not having a good one this time because I knew they had a good one last year. It's
Lightfall, right?
Yeah, Lightfall, the one from
thank you.
Yeah, when you guessed it, and I was it felt like a therapy session. So, but yeah, it's when I think about that about things that way, it's I always like respect stories, especially ones like really like resonate. Like Jedi Survivor resonated with me strong. Obviously helped that it was Star Wars, like, but it's very easy for me to be like, if a story is not hitting for me, as long as like the underlying game is like fun enough, that can carry me through a lot. And obviously with Zelda, I'm not gonna hide my biases, especially as someone that has played that franchise a lot. Obviously it uses a lot of shorthand, so many characters are recurring for like different times, and that's why like at some of the story moments, even though they're not like building up, they're not the end game, like we're building the story for many times, it's just like the on your left moment. It's like some of the cool stuff that happens knowing like what this franchise was. I was like, oh, it's cool that I felt something from a story for, and I usually what I play these games for, it's like for the adventure, for the dungeons, for like what happens there. So it's like, again, it's all a taste thing, and you're not wrong for feeling that way about Tears of the Kingdom. Many people felt that way about Breath of the Wild. I mean, that was me. That was like that. I was Squidward looking at the through the blinds to the people who were like, Breath of the Wild, greatest game of all time, and I was like, nope, I can't. It's like, it deserves to be in that list, not number one. That's how I always was, and I feel extra smug being like with Tears of the Kingdom. If people want to say that, I'm willing now to like listen to the argument now. Maybe not fully agree with it, but it's like, because I knew the last one was like it did something really revolutionary, but everything else was like a step back for me. so I guess it's not, and I'm not coming here saying like Breath of the Wild is great, because I've definitely been consistent with that. So
no, and it's one of those things to where I'm like, like me personally, I would give it a 7 out of 10. I respect what it does in gaming. It's just like I see a lot of shortcomings.
So go to Metacritic. There's 3 reviews that give it 7s. So so it's like there is again a different perspective. One of them was Jim Sterling, that he was now she was notable for giving Breath of the Wild a 7 last time, and he got raked through the coals by so many fans, but he gave it a 7 again. So it's like,
I get it. And the one thing I will say, the last thing I guess I'll say about like Tears of the Kingdom is like especially with the hypocrisy thing, is like, like we absolutely dogged games last year for not having 60 FPS. Zelda is a straight 30 FPS game, and like no discourse. We didn't hear nobody. Like Redfall, like even before we knew it was bad, like got straight drugged through the streets because it was announced it was gonna have 30 FPS. Gotham Knights, same way.
Plague Tale initially.
Plague Tale,
and again, like
standard,
no, not standards, but also hardware. The Switch hardware is not about that, and they never claimed it to be. Why Redfall got dragged, it was like, we're an exclusive in the world's most powerful console. Oh wait, it can't do 60. So it's like,
but here's the thing though, when you're charging $70, that means you put yourself in the same category as like being able to provide the same exact service as other games that do have $70.
And in my argument with that would be, yes, they're putting in the same category as games that have like the story, the visuals, and all of that. When it comes to like the actual polish and the actual scale of this thing, and how many hours I can still extract out of it, it manages to justify it in some way, and especially,
come on, man,
no, especially the big one, it's not broken. With that one, just with that one, you can like completely crap on a bunch of games that launch at $70 that are barely functional.
So you can say like, hey man, I get I'll pay you an extra $20 if you deliver me a game not broken. I'm like, that's not the logic we live in the games industry.
That's the thing, but that's how what games are. The ones that decide, no, we're 70. Like Redfall was the first $70 game over Xbox. It comes with not even the features that the world's most powerful console has, and it came out broken. It's like again, that's like, yes, it's crappy knowing that it's not a next gen game. That's like the only thing that we can definitely have an argument about that. Again, and obviously you don't want to, because it's Nintendo, you don't want to give like the praise of like pushing above your weight that you like giving to indies and all that, but
unfortunately, I'm not giving it that credit. I'm like, you're Nintendo, you're $1 billion company. This is your weight class. This is your weight class.
Yes, but again, it's like they managed to put out a product that is so functional and so like ambitious, beyond like, again, like the ambition of that game is beyond its visuals. It's like, this game is not ambitious in presentation, all that. It's like, it has a level of ambition the other ones don't have, and that's why like no one is like batting an eye at paying $70 for this game. because because there's some quality in it. And again, like this is the only time that they can get away with that. Like any other game that with lesser ambition than this one being charged to 70, here comes the lynching. It's like the lynching would be worth it then.
I'm gonna hold you to that. Whenever Nintendo eventually charges Mario Party and all the Mario.
Oh yeah, and I'll be the first one to lynch them. Have you seen how bare bones they are at 60? Imagine they release that at 70. Oh, I'll be ready. I'm gonna grab the whip. I'm gonna like drag them through the street myself. I'm
gonna hold you to that. Whenever
hold me to that.
Game outside
of this one,
10 out of 10 gets a $70 price point because like quote unquote they didn't release a broken game. That was the standard.
And not only that, and an ambition that's like unseen in many games. But again, I'll be one. If the next Mario is just another Mario Odyssey and it's only $70, I'm gonna drag it. I don't care. I'm gonna
Donkey Kong or Splatoon.
Yeah, all of them. It's like all of them. And the fact that they're releasing Pikmin at 60 means that they're intentionally like creating that separation. So, but we'll see.
I was about to say Metroid Prime Remaster is 60. It's 60.
40. Oh yeah. No, I mean it's like 60 frames, like the GameCube version, because that game was 60 back in GameCube.
That's what I'm saying. Like I know they have games that can run in 60. Is what I'm just.
And also, Metroid Prime way smaller game, like in scale and like So that's why in Mario Odyssey ran at 60, but it's also kind of like segmented. It's not as big and not playing with physics a lot.
I believe Xenoblade is immensely huge. Like
and 30, and it's a 30.
Yeah, I was just like Xenoblade's immensely huge, but like it to me is like
and it struggles to run 30 also. So.
And I understand that, but they also reflect that in the price point. You know what I mean?
It's 60.
You get what I'm saying? You know, like. This game is a $70 game that's going to remain $70 until the end of time because Nintendo
until they do that weird $41.99 sales that they sometimes happen in November. That's why sometimes I got some of their games, but it's like I would never pay 70 for what they released for Luigi's Mansion 3. I would never pay 70 for Metroid Dread. I would never pay 70 for others. To be fair to them, it's like they played with the price. Like Metroid Prime was $40. They could have easily charged 60. They did that with Skyward Sword, and they did way less work with that game. So it's like, it's like right now, like why they get away with this one is just on top of like releasing a more polished product that 90% of the current competition as in 2023.
It's cause and demand.
Yes, and on top of that they definitely took advantage of the fact that it had built-in hype because, like it or not, Breath of the Wild was also big. But any game with less ambition coming forward from this at that price point, I'm ready. I'm gathering. I'm gathering. No, and you don't have to hold me to it, is that because I was consistent with Breath of the Wild, and I'm gonna be consistent with the other things. It's like I believe in consistency of opinion. So it's like unless Switch 2, if it's the next Switch.
If it's the next Switch 2 and the Switch actually feels like an upgrade, because if it's just basically this with maybe a different screen or anything like that, like it comes with an OLED screen.
Yeah, if it's a new Switch with the exact same hardware, oof.
Or even marginally improvement, because this is 2013 hardware. So I'm
2012 hardware because it's the Samsung Tegra.
So I'm like, if it has to be more powerful than the Steam Deck, or at least matching it, and then
or like in classic Nintendo fashion, always like slightly below because they like to be affordable.
Yeah, I mean, the Steam Deck is $400. I'm like, at that point,
wasn't it 500 something?
No, the if you look at the US amount, like the what was it, the 64 gig is like the 64 gig I believe is 400 even, and then like
because I have the 64 gig with a carrying case is $399. Then the one with 256 is $529, and then the 512 is $649.
I mean, the Switch comes with 64 gigs, so I'm matching
actually
it with
32 gigs actually.
Oh yeah, so even worse. So I'm like, even worse. So I'm like,
the only way, like, let's put it like this: like, if the new Switch would have to launch at the exact same price as it originally launched, $299, it would be the only except or because they have the OLED at $349, you don't go higher than that unless the hardware that you put in. It's like actually valuable, and again, like they found the success on making something like relatively affordable that in its early years was pretty impressive. And again, it's like it set a standard for like for being like, hey, portable console quality gaming on the go. There must be a market for that. Then we got the Steam Deck again.
Yeah.
So,
and the ROG Ally and everything that follows. We're just in a different place now to where where I need them to have quality. And this isn't me bashing on Nintendo. Like I want them to do well. I just want them to actually be held to the same standards.
Yeah. And I bet you, as soon as the next Switch comes out, that actually now has the power that can actually play there, those standards are gonna happen. Like they absolutely will. So we can be like and we can be then and we can properly dog them for it if they don't deliver. So and that's why, like, if Nintendo from back in 2017, their hardware was like, we're doing a very powerful handheld that will run all your games at 60 frames. Like, the thing when Nintendo never understood, like, especially after GameCube was the only time they used power as a selling point. That generation was a wash for them. That didn't move the needle for them. They center again on gameplay, on like game design. So that's why, like, people understand that they're not dogging them technically, because it's like they're never the ones promising it. And also it's like the whole like Nintendo seal of approval from like they're actually made games. Like, because let's remember this with the Pokemon Company, that's not Nintendo. They just polish it. And the Pokemon Company is like has a weird thing with them that they have to put everything out, and because they just have to like put the stamp no matter what. It's like now people are like, maybe not in sales, but people are like dragging them through the street now. Like, so things are happening.
Nintendo's gonna get all the credit. It's not the Pokemon Company that's gonna get awarded credit at the end of the year when people aren't gonna say, and the word goes to the Nintendo Company. Everyone's gonna be like, Nintendo made a banger with that Pokemon game this year. Let's be honest.
But no one like that's the thing. Like, Pokemon hasn't been rewarded in like God knows how long, because like the quality just hasn't been there.
No.
Like if you notice, it's like the rare times that Nintendo really rewarded are like rare and fleeting, because like Nintendo is the only place where you go for the few times. That's what we play on the other consoles. They get 80% of our play time. So, but yeah, it's like, I'm not gonna be a hypocrite when the next Switch comes out. If the games are not marginally improved to what they can do now, I got the lynch ready. So
I got you.
So
what's our next topic, man?
Yeah. So next topic, we're gonna go through some news. Sebastion, so press X.
What? Yeah.
For some news. So Sebastion, it's been a week since we last saw the PlayStation showcase, the one that we had been waiting for a while. When we saw it, you definitely enjoyed it a lot. In fact, that you even tweeted about it. I told you I was a little for the wait. I wasn't as impressed, like overall. But I thought it was a solid showcase of games overall. Maybe not a great PlayStation showcase, because with the things we expected from them just weren't there. And some things were missing. A big one that was missing was Last of Us. Like, we were expecting factions to be there, and it just like came and went without a whiff. 2 days later, we find out why.
What happened, man?
Yeah, story number 1 by Andy Robinson. The Last of Us multiplayer game has reportedly been scaled back. Sony has reportedly scaled back the size of Naughty Dog's The Last of Us multiplayer game, following an evaluation of the project by the platform holder and newly acquired Bungie. According to Bloomberg, the number of people working on the project has been reduced, partly as a result of the Destiny Studios' feedback as to its quality and viability. Bungie raised questions about The Last of Us multiplayer project's ability to keep players engaged for a long period of time, which led to the reassessment, the Bloomberg report claims. According to the publication, while the game has not been cancelled, many of its developers have been moved to other projects, and a small group remains while Sony reevaluates its direction. Shortly before the Bloomberg report's publication, Naughty Dog seemingly preempted the story with a statement on social media, in which it indicated that The Last of Us multiplayer game would require more time and development. So this was the statement. The Last of Us fans, we know many of you have been looking forward to hearing more about our The Last of Us multiplayer game. We're incredibly proud of the job our studio has done thus far, but as development has continued, we've realized that it's best for the game is to give it more time. Our team will continue to work on the project as well as our other games in development, including a brand new single-player experience. We look forward to sharing more soon. We're grateful to our fantastic community for your support. Thank you for your passion for our games. It continues to drive us.
I need to check, man, because that single-player experience trademark is fouled officially. Yeah. They need to give me some money.
Yeah. So Live service games, Sebastian.
Okay.
Every time someone wants to get there, try to chase that bag, years after they've seen others that after they put the work and gone through the trials and tribulations, if there's something that I've learned, it never goes well.
No,
ever.
Never.
Not even for Naughty Dog. The studio from Sony that, as of right now, like, has just been hit batting 1,000. Literally. It's like everyone has their issues with some of the story decisions of The Last of Us Part 2. That game was fantastic. That was Naughty Dog's best game. Not just in the way it presented its story, in visuals, but also how it improved in gameplay. We talked about to me it's not the best stealth game because it's still very basic in its stealth mechanics, but the way the simple stealth of that game merges so well with the presentation, that entire package. It's it's such that it's they finally, the Naughty Dog recently has been really finally honing in on gameplay more than, because story, presentation, graphics, they got that in the bag. We know that's always going to be great for them. Then trying to do this multiplayer, which originally was going to be part of Last of Us Part 2. Then when they revealed that date back in 2019 and they said that there was not going to be multiplayer, and people cried out, it was man, factions was so cool in the original, why is it not there? Then it was yeah, we needed to use the extra resources to make the single player the best it can be, but we heard you. We still have a multiplayer team in house that we're going to see what we can do to give you the experience. And then for some reason here, they decided, yeah, this multiplayer thing is going to be its own standalone thing. And then the whole live service back started kind of happening, and they're no, it's gonna be one of those live service games. In fact, we're actually gonna note that whatever is next for Naughty Dog in our quarterly presentation, we're gonna put their studio's name in the live service bag. And now you're telling us is that thing's not going well. What does that tell you? That even the greatest developer chasing the live service bag, fool's errand. It's a road that leads to failure. How many more bodies do we need to see in the live service pile before people get the memo? To Sony's credit, this happened because they bought Bungie last year. The big thing is they didn't buy it for them to make games exclusive for them. They bought them because later in the story says Sony Director Entertainment revealed that it's using Bungie to rigorously vet its many in development live service games. The timing of this disclosure is notable considering a live service game in development of PlayStation-backed Deviation games was recently reported to have been cancelled. So interesting, you're investing in this many live service games, you get the studio that knows how to do that thing coming to tell you that the things are bad. What does that tell you? It's they're good at something. They could have tried maybe other different kinds of genres. Don't do live service. Live service, especially if you're not an expert. Even if you have the talent now with Bungie, that, let's not forget, even though they have been running Destiny for 9 years now, that road was paved through failure and success and failure and success, rinse and repeat. Why chase that? Just because of money?
Alejandro, let me tell you a story. Let me just go ahead and tell you a story. Let me put on my story glasses. These were also given to me by a little company named Sub2R and everything like that. They also provided this nice green screen you see right behind you. These are my storytelling glasses. These are also gaming glasses. They help, they help with
sponsor element.
Yeah, they help with all my gaming needs and such like that, and also help me stay in the game longer. But here's why I put on my storytelling glasses, Alejandro. Have you ever heard of this little guy, this little bumpkin of a guy who's from a small town by the name of Michael Jeffrey Jordan? Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah.
So you might have heard of him. He once helped Bugs Bunny take down some evil toons and such like that and such. But anyways, Michael Jordan went outside of his lane. He was a fantastic basketball player, but he decided he wanted to be a baseball player. Absolutely was horrible at it. Let's be real about it. You saw Space Jam, striking out like crazy and such like that. This reminds me a lot about that. Why sometimes in life, people, you have to stay in your lane. Remember Michael Jeffrey Jordan, when he helped the Toons take down the aliens and such like that. He came back and he learned his lesson. He shouldn't be playing baseball when he is naturally a basketball player. for you people at Naughty Dog, who I owe a lot to, because you have made some wonderful experiences too.
The Uncharted series and Last of Us, two of our favorite franchises ever.
Oh yeah, you helped mold the single player experience in me, and helped me to create the Single Player Experience podcast. So with all that said, stay in your lane, man. Stay in your lane. Make single player games. You ain't necessarily gotta make Uncharted again. You ain't gotta make The Last of Us. You can make a Space Odyssey and such like that. Matter of fact, if you really want to be petty, you can make Starfield.
Yeah.
You can make your own version of Starfield and really be petty about it. But don't make a live service game. You haven't seen very many live service games succeed, and what made you think you were gonna be the one? So
he just won't. He just absolutely won't. That's just the truth. Because how can you make a Last of Us live service multiplayer game where the thing that people, why they're pursuing this bag is because of ongoing monetization? And why is Fortnite making so much money? Because the way they made their games, like they can have Darth Vader, they can have Optimus Prime, they can have Master Chief, they can have Kratos, they can have Anakin Skywalker, like being able to like sell all those like skins in a game that works. How are you gonna monetize this? Are you gonna bring in Master Chief into the Last of Us universe? Like, what kind of like, are you gonna be making like wacky weapons and all this? Like, the Last of Us universe is not one for like an ongoing monetization thing. A multiplayer mode and a single player, like on top of like the single player experience, like what happened with the 2013 game, that's fine because at least it was there. And Factions in 2013 was good. In fact, many people were surprised how good it was, because they barely talked about it. It was like it was barely previewed. The game just launched, and then people tried it and were like, oh wow, it's like multiplayer like in Last of Us, like that actually fits to the themes of survival and like scrounging and all that. This worked, and it didn't take away from the amazing single player story that was the original Last of Us.
Here's an idea. Just remake the Last of Us Factions mode again. Charge $30 for it.
Yeah.
And let these people who want to play this bumpkin faction game, all 13 of them, go play Factions.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, ain't nobody buying a PS5 to play Last of Us Factions.
Nope.
So all five people who want this game to come out, all 5 of you, man, just tell these people, just tweet at them, because all 5 of y'all will get heard through that. Just tell them, make Last of Us Factions again. You don't have to remaster it. You don't have to make all these like Last of Us 2 gameplay mechanics in the Last of Us Factions. Just give these people the janky mode that was Last of Us Factions, so we can stop hearing about this. Because let's be honest, don't nobody want to hear about this either way.
Yeah,
do they?
Especially knowing that how much time it's taken.
Nah.
Like how much they're like, them focusing on this has that like robbed us from another Naughty Dog game, like an actual new one? Because Part 1, the remake, really good. Wasn't made by them. It was mostly done by the visual arts team over at Sony, that then they decided to finish the work in-house, but that wasn't started by them. So it was like just something quick that they whipped out, and the fact that it was at that high quality is a testament to their standards. But I'm
who's the team that did Destruction All-Stars?
That was like Lucid, that wasn't even owned by Sony.
No, go buy them, man. Go buy them and put them on this project.
Have them do that. Just let Naughty Dog be Naughty Dog. Like,
exactly.
Naughty Dog, as much as I love Uncharted and Last of Us, they are definitely due for a new IP. I've always said that, and it's like, but not multiplayer. There has to be a new IP within the single player realm. That's what they're good at. That's what you made your bones with. Their quality is like unmatched in that area.
What was the janky looking game that Jade Raymond was supposed to be like showing
Fair Games at the beginning of the showcase?
Let them go ahead and do this, because what they were showing looked like a janky, like off-brand version of Watch Dogs anyway. So,
exactly.
Man,
don't use your
glasses off. I'm spicy right now.
Don't let the other teams like live and die in that area. Let them.
Exactly.
It's like, don't use Naughty Dog to do that. Especially like, it's like opportunity, like every opportunity taken is an opportunity lost. And what this tells, especially if they're downscaling this, like, are you gonna complete this project like with a downscale team? That's not gonna happen. It's like, that's just gonna lead to cancellation. Let's just be honest. It's like, unless like whatever they have working. These other glasses.
they gave me another pair, man. Nice. These are my unspicy glasses right here.
Love it. That was the perfect time for me to see these glasses, I tell you. Even better than I was expecting.
These are the unspicy glasses. So now I'm back in chill mode. So what were you saying?
Yeah, so it's like, if they're scaling back this, maybe multiplayer for part 3 is like they already got the work, they're just gonna insert it there and leave it there. It's like that. I feel that's the only place this can live. Like, I don't feel Last of Us as a live service is gonna work. It's like, Jim Ryan, wake the fuck up. Just look what happened over. Actually, I'm gonna skip to story number 6. Let's just do that because I feel it's pertinent to that. Let's get all the negativity out of the way.
Okay, let's go.
Story by Tom Ivan. Redfall devs reportedly hoped it would be cancelled or rebooted by Microsoft. A new report claims to shed light on the circumstances that resulted in Redfall's disappointing release last month. Following several delays, the first major Xbox exclusive from Bethesda released with a number of technical issues and generally reviewed poorly, garnering aggregate scores of 56 and 54. Redfall is a multiplayer loot shooter, a genre that's new to creator Arcane Studios, which is known best for its critically acclaimed single-player immersive sims like Dishonored and Prey. According to a new report, the game's development was hampered by a lack of clear direction, a high turnover of staff, and insignificant resources for what was billed as a AAA team. Parenthesis with that. You can clearly tell by playing that thing. You can absolutely tell. The report, which is based on the accounts of over a dozen anonymous sources who worked on the title, said the project started development in 2018 after being pitched to staff as a multiplayer Arcane game. Some members reportedly found the pitch confusing and felt unsure that the sort of gameplay Arcane was known for would translate well to a co-op setting. No shit. The game reportedly suffered because,
parentheses, no shit.
Yeah,
that's what it said.
Yeah, the game reportedly suffered because its development team was continually understaffed, with Arcane's Austin office employing fewer than 100 people and insufficient outsourcing support offered by Bethesda. Many experienced developers who weren't interested in making a multiplayer game reportedly left the studio, with almost 3/4 of the Austin staff who had worked on 2017's Prey, parenthesis, an incredible game by the way, close parenthesis, said to have departed Arcane by the time Redfall was finished. Arcane is said to have experienced difficulties filling vacancies with lower than average salaries, its Texas location, and the desire of prospective employees to work on single-player immersive sims viewed as contributing factors. Let me start right there. Of course, everyone that will want to work for your studio will want to go work for single-player immersive sims. That's where your bones. So of course, continuing, when development of the game started, Bethesda's then parent company ZeniMax was reportedly pushing its studios to develop live service titles, and according to Bloomberg, Redfall had a significant microtransaction plan in place for 3 years before it was scrapped in 2021. That same year, Microsoft acquired ZeniMax in a $7.5 billion deal, and same Arcane staff reportedly hoped the Xbox maker might cancel Redfall or reboot it as a single-player game. However, Microsoft took something of a hands-off approach to Bethesda's game development studios, as Xbox Phil Spencer acknowledged in a recent Kind of Funny Games interview. We didn't do a good job early on in engaging Arcane Austin to really help them understand what it meant to be part of Xbox and part of first party, and use some of our internal resources to help them move along that journey even faster, said Spencer. We left them to work on the game. They're a very talented team. I love that team and I still do, and I will totally bet on them to do another great game. But when Matt Booty and Jamie Letter sat down, the Xbox Game Studios head and ZeniMax president, I think we can engage earlier with our different studios, and I do think there's a difference when we come in when the creative is already set on a game, and that's not washing our hands. Every game we ship from our teams is an Xbox game, so we take full responsibility for it. That's what he said on that interview. Spencer said he believed a platform holder did a better job with Bethesda's other 2023 release, the upcoming sci-fi RPG Starfield, in terms of assisting development, because the game was earlier in production when Xbox acquired it. We should have been there for Redfall, co-creative director Harvey Smith and the team earlier. I think that's on us, he continued. And then through the process in an Unreal Engine game. We have a bunch of studios that have done some really great work on Unreal over the years. And I think we were too late to help in that when they had certain issues.
Not to unpack here. So, like, I admire, first of all, once again, I think we said this before when you were on my show as well. Like, shout out to Phil Spencer for doing that interview.
Yeah.
I know that couldn't have been easy and everything like that.
The timing was horrible for that interview to happen, but he still took the fall. Took
it right on the chin like a champ, man. Shout out to him for doing that. But like Redfall, for better or for worse, we probably spoke on it tons by now. But like, it is what it is at this point. I will say, like, games just in general need to get better messaging on what they are trying to achieve from the get-go, because like when there's internal strife on what the game you're working on is, like whether it's a single player, whether it's a multiplayer, whether it's games as a service, or whether it does single player and multiplayer games, like there's no such thing as a company where you work at Alejandro and like you don't know what you're doing like for the main goal. Like you don't go to Burger King and don't know the main goal of why you're selling burgers. Like, there's no such thing as like as a corporate vision that most people in the company don't know about. And like you don't work on any project in any sort of industry and don't know what you're working on. So like that to me spells trouble. And like Gotham Knights had a very similar issue, if you remember correctly, where
so like, clear, especially with how long it took to make,
where like the messaging was unclear too, of like what is this game? Is it a single player? Is it a multiplayer? Oh, it's both. Well, like it's like,
it said live service. No, not but it's not really. But let's keep all elements of live service in it, even though it's not.
Exactly. So I'm like, I feel like the best games that we get right now, and this is where I will give Tears of the Kingdom, it's like flowers. It's like you know what you want it to be and you execute that vision. Exactly. Whether that vision is for everybody or not, like you know what you are and you go full steam ahead and try to be the best version of that.
It had a clear vision of intent. It had a clear understanding of what they needed to do. They didn't have to like try to appeal to anything that was not their strengths. It's like it's just that game, and it's so unfortunate that obviously this game, like it was mentioned in the story, was conceived in that Wolfenstein Youngblood / Fallout 76 era of like trying to make this like franchises into live services, because at that point Bethesda was like hurting for money because their games were just not selling. And it was ironic all this happened a year after they made this big ad in the Game Awards. There was like, we are Bethesda and we're saving player one. They were all about it. It's like, no, we're the studio. There's like single player experiences matter. It's like we're gonna protect the sanctity of that experience. It's like that's what our games do. And immediately they purchased, they went the live service back because they were hurting for cash. But this is what happens when you make a studio that's not built for that kind of game do that kind of game. And it breaks my heart knowing that, especially since Jason Schreier from Bloomberg, he's the one that reported this. I just got the basically the Cliff Notes versions of this report from BGC. Is like the fact that Arcane was like hoping that Microsoft would come in and see what this was, and they could have canceled and instead of just like let them be like what it was doing. It's like, I think there's the worst part of all this is the fact that they lost 70% of their staff. A lot of the people that made Prey, an amazing single player game, are gone. What is Arcane Austin now? Yes, Phil Spencer said that he believes they can make another great game, but I'm like, yes, due to the fall, but understand like the damage of taking an off like a hands-off approach. Like you could have had the money to reboot this to like what it would have been properly had if Redfall had been like the new Dishonored, like an actual like in that vein, like fully, not this like fragmented 4-player thing where like the vampires are T-posting. Do you ever see the clip that I sent you of like my vampire T-posting? It's like it was incredible. I was like, how? It's like it was more hurtful knowing it's like you put your stamp on this. This is your first party. It's like understand. It's like you can't be hands off. It's like why I'll always like it's like why Nintendo and PlayStation have more respect from a first party perspective than Xbox. Is like no matter what, it's like they keep a lid on the quality. They absolutely do. They do. And it's like if you really want with everything that you're buying, because they're still trying to acquire Activision Blizzard. It's like, do you recently acquire Bethesda? That's what happened. And how am I gonna entrust that when you have all of that? You're gonna have a finger on the pulse that you know what, it's quality. It's like that's why them saying it's like we did a better job with Starfield. I'm like, I don't believe you. Like the track record doesn't like inspire me confidence. And Microsoft dove into the live service bag way too early. To their credit, they have found some success after hitting out. Like Sea of Thieves is one of the most successful live service games that they had. It helped that it was exclusive and they had Game Pass, so of course like that would help it in a way, but it's like not everything can be one. It's like, again, like what I keep saying is like a live service game is a full-time job. My full-time job is Destiny, people. It's like there are many people that get their one, they find their one, and that's it.
They stick with it. Yeah. The market's a little saturated too with live service games, and like Xbox is already competing with itself, and I like Grounded is another example. Like Grounded, you got Sea of Thieves. I mean, you also have people who play the third party ones like a Destiny and stuff like that. Like the
Apex Legends, Fortnite,
all of it. It's overcrowded, but like, it makes me also question, Sony's platform of going full scale live service with their 60% of the budget. It's like. I feel like big companies learn from each other a lot because like the most successful companies seem to emulate the things that work and the things that also avoid the things that don't. But like it's crazy because like I don't see the case examples of how this is working extremely well for a lot of people outside of Epic Games at this point.
No, it really like, and the things that everyone's trying to chase that back, but it's like that is just a 1 in a million. It's like Fortnite cracked the code, like they found the goal at the perfect time. They pivoted because that was not what Fortnite was. Fortnite was a build, it was basically a tower defense game. That's what it was. They saw the tower defense thing was like gaining traction. It was like not working at all. Then they saw that PUBG was like trying something new. They were like, they're using the same technology that we do, maybe we can make it work on or with our building systems. That's kind of where it came from. And it hit the right moment. That the only time that Battle Royale was really like huge, because again, like when something new happens in the gaming industry, is always gonna be huge, and that's always gonna be the exciting part. But it's like they hit it right on point, and then they struck gold with the art style to do the crossovers and all that. That's why they make so much money, because it's like it's just a skin platform. it's just what it is. And Apex tried. It's still successful. Like that's a very, in fact, I learned this in a recent like EA like financials. The success of Apex Legends, their one's live service, is the reason why we're getting so many single player games from EA. Yeah, because they have some. Yeah, it's basically funding them because they know that they can take risks because they have something that's constantly fun. Instead of like making everything a live service, do one. Just do one, and let everyone else do it. Because Sony's strategy is like, we're gonna grab bunch of manure, this cow manure, we're gonna throw it to the wall and see which one sticks. And the fact that you're trying to invest with so many of them, they're gonna like a lot of them are gonna it's like I don't feel that's a sound strategy. Just seeing, hopefully, let's hope one of these stick, because it's like expecting to launch something that's just gonna fill in the market. I feel that's just irresponsible. It just feels really irresponsible. And the worst part, you acquired Bungie, you might as well just let them do it. Have them fund you, because Destiny's always a top 10 played game in Steam, in Xbox, and PlayStation. They have the chops. Marathon, not gonna be my kind of thing, but if that hits, you have your one, and it's gonna be like in all platforms. It's like, don't make everyone else do that, because we're gonna reach into situations where they're gonna put, I bet you it's like they didn't mention it here because obviously like they at least have some cachet of it, but I bet you Naughty Dog felt the same way. I bet you, I can bet you top dollar that them like trying to pursue this live service with factions, they probably felt the same way. They sure were eager to let us know they're working on a single player game. For sure. So that to me tells me everything. So it's like, man. So like Sony built their empire in one way, especially this last generation. It's gonna suck seeing it. Like we're seeing it play in live with what happened with Microsoft. Like Microsoft is desiring to do what PlayStation did last generation, and to credit for them, at least they already found success with some of their live services. Those are thriving now. They got them now. Now it's time to like get the other ones. And even then, they had a massive failure in Halo Infinite, a game that they attempted to put in that bag, and it just didn't work. Crazy. Yeah, so
it's crazy. We're also like looking at, like I have the PlayStation presentation going on behind me right now. It's like one of the weird things I found about that presentation with all the live service games is like all of them were shooters. Like all of them were shooters. I'm like, you're not differentiating yourself from any of the known shooters out there. And also, if you release like 5 other shooters, I'm like, which one is going to succeed at that point?
Yeah, and which one's going to get your focus? Which is going to be the one you're going to put your marketing weight behind? That you're going to be willing to let it stick. That's the problem with doing so many of these. Like, yes, many...
I was about to say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you know what PlayStation should do if they really want to do a live service game? Do the one and make it like PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale, to where like make their own Super Smash Brothers, because now they have IPs to actually like flesh out that
yes,
kind of game.
PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale came way too early.
Yeah,
it came way too early for that idea, especially they didn't have the cachet. It came in the console that didn't have the install base or the cachet for people to actually buy games like they did with PS4. If they had done it in the PS4, it would have been a massive success, because there's like this stable of IPs and the idea of the crossover. Exactly. That would have worked, and it would have been unique. And if they had, it's like, I would have believed they would have done it now if it wasn't Jim Ryan running the ship. that's
the crazy thing is, like, you already have like the live service initiative going forward. I'm like, do that instead of like doing like 6 different versions of Fortnite, basically.
Yeah, it's like, part of me is like, as much as I love PlayStation, I kind of want to see them fail with this, so they know. They understand. It's like, and unfortunately, it's like because of how long development takes now. That's what sucks. Like, I know that the idea for them was that we had this chat also, that obviously the game, they have a very specific kind of game. The God of War Ragnaroks, The Last of Us, the Horizons and all that. Those games, they sell really well. Like, Last of Us Part 2 sold 10 million copies. They did it in 2 years, which already was like, okay, it could have sold a little bit more if it was just 3 years, especially when Tears of the Kingdom did that in 3 days, which is insane to think about. But then Ragnarok sold 11 million in 3 months. That's impressive. That was actually pretty impressive before Tears of the Kingdom did all like 10 in 3 days. But those games are selling.
Horizon's also got like an IP problem, and it's new, and it's you know, even though this is like a newer, like a second iteration, like it doesn't have 10 decades, a decade worth of like lineage like God of War and even Zelda, which has quite
and that helps it a lot, because like there's like that weight of like the non-quantity that has reinvented itself. But even then, like Horizon overall, like between Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West, it sold 32 million copies. Like obviously for
good.
That's healthy. That's pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Those games take 5 years to make, so it's like, I understand like the idea is for Sony to be like, we kind of want to keep doing that because there's a certain level of quality. Obviously, it's like the war of escalation. Now with the higher fidelity means that you need to put extra work hours and all of that. So I understand the idea that maybe they want to like throw those live services in to keep bringing in the money to keep funding that. That is fine. My problem is that you're putting so many of those in development, way too many, because it's like then it's just limiting the game that you do really well to like the very few studios, and I'm like, it's gonna rob us of the potential of the next great single player experience, from them, because it's like right now we're in sequel mode. Right now, obviously, God of War has only had two entries in this newer in like this newer reimagined era, but it's still a long running franchise. Horizon is just on 2. I'm worried. We've heard many things that they're planning on over exposing Horizon a little bit with a remake, the multiplayer game, the Netflix show. Is like, it's just too much for that IP, that even though it's selling, their numbers say it's telling them it's like selling a lot, it doesn't feel like it's in that like cachet. It's still too new to like overexpose it like that. So it's like, I'm just fearful of like how little of those games are gonna, like, we're still gonna get them, but it's like they're just gonna become the unicorns now instead of being like the main course, and I hate that. I really hate that.
It feels like we're gonna get a whole bunch of Days Gones as a result of this. Where Days Gone's not like necessarily a bad game. It's just,
I enjoy Days Gone a lot, especially now that it's been fixed. It's like it's actually painful to think that, man, eventually it got there, but they didn't want to take another crack at it because it was like it reviewed bad out of the gate, and they're all about quality. So it's like, nah, it's
too little, too late. But yeah, it's one of those things to where, like, you know, like even though it's a good game, and I'm right there with you, it's like, it's still like, as far as Sony games go, it's like a C tier type of game, you know, like, and it feels like we might get a whole lot of C tier type of games because of this initiative. But like, we'll see.
That's what live service is. Like Diablo 4 is the only rare one recently that's coming out that's already got reviews out. It's like, they got it right because they made a robust game like Diablo used to be before live service, and setting it up for a live service future. Where I'm used to
plenty of practice.
Exactly, they have plenty of practice. So it's like, those are the ones that are like, yeah, you're playing in your lane, stay in your lane, and I'm like, don't be that. Like, do your own thing. Like, you already found so much. Like, I can't imagine selling 11 million copies of God of War Ragnarok. It probably already sold a little bit more. Again, it's like the fact that the conversation over that game just died so quickly. It's like, it's so sad for me, but it's like, you can't imagine like not feeling happy about selling that much over a single player game on your own system. Like, Like,
the crazy thing is, like, that game's just gonna live on through the life cycle of the PS5 at this point. Like, you sold a net 11 million, and now you just, like, whatever that thing does for the next, like, 5 years is just icing on the cake at that point.
Exactly. You know? It's like you got all the sales when they matter, when they was very expensive. So it's like I can't imagine. It's like, to me, it's like it's just greed. It's just the one of, like, you see the, why make the billions when you can make the gazillions? That to me is like such a horrible greedy mentality that it's just gonna, like, corrode gaming. Like, it absolutely just gonna corrode gaming, and that's why, like, to me, like, I love the success of games like Elden Ring and Zelda, like, just for monetary, because it's like, look what they were able to do, how much they were able to do just by staying in their lane.
Yeah, I understand. I'm right there with you. I'm happy for their success, especially what it means for the single player landscape.
Yeah, obviously, like, there's always the fear that then, like, again, like, the trend chasing that always happens, being like, we gotta make that. No, take elements, but do your thing. So that there was like that game that we saw later, like halfway through the showcase, that had like the Breath of the Wild cloth floating. Remember, it had like all the monsters. So it was like, do that. It's like, you're making your own game. You're taking some elements. You're like, oh yeah, they got it from that, but then you have your own flavor. It's like do that. It's like, it's clear gamers want that, and I'm glad it's like people are speaking with their wallets. Like, gamers, please rise up. Keep supporting the single player. Show these developers they can make the money here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, keep showing that, and you just hope that people actually show up for even if it comes out outside your console ecosystem, like story number 2, the original story number 2, by Tom Ivan. But if you see Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart coming to PC in July. Sony Interactive Entertainment will release Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart for PC on July 26, 2023. Shortly after the PC version was leaked by data miner BillBillCon, Nix's Software officially announced that it's developing the title in collaboration with Insomniac Games. The game will be available on Steam and Epic Games Store. Players who pre-purchase it will get access to 2 in-game items early in their playthrough, the Pixelizer weapon and the Carbonauts armor set. The PC version of Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart features ray trace reflections with a variety of quality levels to choose from, and newly added ray trace shadows for natural light in indoor and outdoors areas. This enables realistic shadows with natural gradients and softness. We know many PC gamers enjoy playing on ultra-wide monitors. For those, we added support for 21:9, 32:9, and up to 48.9 resolutions for triple monitor gaming setups. Both gameplay and cutscenes are optimized for ultra-wide screens. This is possible thanks to our engineers, artists, and QA team, who have analyzed the game and adjusted all cinematics to ensure compatibility with panoramic aspect ratios. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart on PC offers full mouse and keyboard support with customizable controls. Controllers are also fully supported, and when using a DualSense controller on a wired connection, you can feel in-game actions coming to life in your hands with haptic feedback and dynamic triggers. Originally released for PS5 in June 2021, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart was billed as an interdimensional adventure that uses the console's SSD to rapidly transport players between different locations. So, yes, it's like, I would say Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart came and went, which is kind of sad, but it's also because it came out so early at a time where people didn't have PS5s. It recently got released on PS Extra, so people that are paying the $15 a month or $18 a month rates for PS Plus get to experience that, which, for my money, it is still the prettiest game of this console generation. I actually think it looks prettier than Horizon.
Oh man, I think you're crazy, but not by much. I think you're just slightly crazy. But yeah, I think it's up there for contention for.
Yeah, I feel like the art direction is just even more impressive because it's sci-fi. There's just something like even more like cool looking about it. Obviously, Horizon is better looking in a more realistic way, even though it has its sci-fi trappings with the robots and all of that. But it's like there's just something very Pixar quality about Ratchet and Clank. So that's why to me it's like that's like the most gorgeous game, and that fact that it came from Insomniac also. Again, they're putting the work, and I feel this is gonna breathe new life into this game. That again, like I know that you didn't hear about this. Like when that game launched, it was called like one of Insomniac's quote unquote buggier games, but it not like widespread for it to be a problem. Actually, Returnal was a bigger problem for many.
Yeah, I've heard about Returnal's problems, but
again, Lord Cognito, he literally, because that game had no saving and he got far away and his console crashed. He said he wanted to like punt the console when that happened. So it's like, again, COVID, like it was like that COVID like pandemic, work from home, like adapting, and they didn't have like the polish for it, and now it's really polished. And I'll say also this with this one is like, this is a game I definitely want to give another go, because I didn't quite love it, but I also had this problem. I replayed all the Ratchet and Clanks before it.
Man, you got oversaturated.
Yeah, so I oversaturated, and I think you remember when you mentioned that you were wondering why a game like this didn't get like the flowers with like what it does with technology and all of that, because at its core it was still a Ratchet and Clank game. So there's so many people. So that's like,
come on,
but it's like this game deserved. I feel if it had come later, when more people had the console widely available, they would see like this game. I feel flexes the SSD in such a way, which actually there were some details that came from this for Spider-Man 2 today, from like Eurogamer and Washington Post and all that. How to say that the way they did the technology for the portal rifting and moving through things, it's what they're basing the speedness of how you move through the world in Spider-Man now. Kind of like what we saw with that demo when they're like gliding around and all that. So it's like it's coming from this. So man, it's like Insomniac. They're really. Do you ever see that image of like Spider-Man like holding the debris? That's Insomniac right now with the PS5. They put so much, and a lot of it has been quality. Like,
oh yeah, for sure. They put out everything. Anything and everything they put out is absolute quality. Yeah, this is exciting for PC fans to get a hold of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which I consider one of the, I would probably say, top 10 games of the PS5's life cycle right now. But you know,
in the few that are there, but
yeah, for sure. But like, yeah, and the fact that it's going to be accessible in so many different ways, all the NVIDIAs, all the like ray tracings, all the monitors and everything like that. You can play this on a Microsoft Zune and everything like that, you know, like, you know, so.
I'm actually really curious though, because if Sony made a big deal before this, that the PS5's custom built SSD is what made this game possible. Now it's releasing in a platform in Steam and the PC that has like all million different permutations. I'm really curious to see how it works and how true it is.
To give you a little sneak peek, like I upgraded my my hard drive with the SD hard drive, and the Ratchet and Clank is what I played it from. So it's like that kind of gives you a little indication on like you can play this outside of like that PS5. Super
so again, it was just like marketing.
It was.
Yes.
It really was.
But hey, this game deserves more players. It absolutely does. So I'm glad that I'm glad that it's now. It was weirdly one of the last games. Like Horizon Forbidden West got to PS Extra before this, and this was older. So this was weird that they took them so long to put that in that subscription. But I'm glad it's there. More people need to play this. I can't wait to play it again. Fresher, like instead of like my 6th Ratchet and Clank after I did the trilogy on PS3 and the other ones from PS2. Yeah, I didn't have my PS5 at the time, so I was trying to hit the hunger, but that's the problem with playing so many games from that franchise before. There's danger of burning up.
You are the type of gamer, man, that goes and eats a whole bunch of pizza before you go to a pizza buffet.
Yeah, like it happens. And Paul made fun of me for that. It's like that. It's like I just love replaying. It's like I'm very I'm a very nostalgic person, so I love, especially if the games are short. If the games are long, no way. Like,
nah, man.
And
you need to be a new cutscene person. Like, just watch some cutscenes as opposed to playing it again.
It's so weird. So I just love like the experience of playing it. It's,
I understand.
Okay, let's. So story number 3. Former God of War art director joins Netflix to work on an original AAA game. Santa Monica studio art director Raf Grassetti announced earlier this month that he was leaving the God of War studio after more than a decade at Sony. And on Wednesday, he revealed that he's joined the Netflix studio led by former Overwatch executive producer Chaco Sony. He'll also be working alongside the studio's creative director Joseph Staten, the Halo veteran who left Microsoft last month, and its director of technology Jerry Edsel, who was previously lead programmer on Gears 5. I'm happy to announce that I've joined Netflix to develop a new original IP AAA game. I'm really excited to build a team and to work with the amazing Joseph Staten, Jerry Edsel, and Chaco Sony to bring a new world to life. Netflix said in March that it was planning to release another 40 games in 2023, taking its offerings to 95 by the end of the year. Obviously, a bunch of those are tiny games that are like
they're gonna be service.
Like the company which began offering Netflix subscribers access to a library of mobile games through the Android and iOS versions of its app in late 2021 also said it had 16 first-party games in development and a further 70 in the works with third-party studios. So obviously a bunch of indie stuff, but is the fact that this is actually going to be a big AAA game with this level of talent, and it's going to be multi-platform. I'm really curious. Like, obviously Netflix has a shit ton of money, a lot of it, that they were able to secure the director creator of the Halo lore, the art director for God of War, which is amazing. Like the art of God of War is immaculate. In fact, it's like why Horizon is superior is because of the technical. Like the technical is just but the art direction of the two God of War games is very striking. And for a very like proto photorealistic but not really game, so they got that dude in. I mean, just like if you look at the articles, they had the launch trailer where it's like you see the Skull and Hati scene. Like, just that art is like that comes from art direction. So it's like they got the art director. I hope it's a banger. I hope this is not Stadia. Like this is not the Stadia energy of like poaching a bunch of talent with a lot of money and then nothing comes out of it. So
no, I think they're already doing that. Like to me, Stadia was like too a la carte as well as like and like Netflix is already like banging out a lot of really good games like Moonlighter. I love Moonlighter. I think it's one of my favorite Zelda-like games, like old school retro like Zelda-like games. Immortality, which was a nominee for Game of the Year. Like
that was from them. That's where it came from. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Immortality is also on Netflix Studios. Kentucky Route Zero is also like on the service. Yeah, and then Into the Breach is another good one. I mean, like they've been stuffing that platform as well. Like even by studios that didn't necessarily like make their games natively for that platform. Like TMNT Shredder's Revenge is on Netflix right now.
That's awesome. I love that game. I love that game so much. Shredder's Revenge is just so fun.
They're putting that quality in that service right now.
And to me, bringing that talent means that they're gonna be putting a banger. Especially if they're gonna pursue them to do that. I hope they do, because as the industry keeps getting more consolidated and all that, like I would hope at least one of these big conglomerates that are not gaming, they do the right, like eventually get it right. Because obviously Amazon hasn't quite gotten it right.
With Luna,
with Luna. Obviously Google, big swing and a miss, because they had good technology, but they completely screwed with how they pursued the business of it. So
Nvidia Shield is actually getting there. Like that one's getting there, and Xbox Cloud Gaming is really good right now. Yeah, more
places for games to happen. So and I hope that that Netflix really gives these guys the time, the money, and like and basically the care for them to put out an actual banger that it can make them a legit gaming studio. As we're seeing the industry just continually gets smaller in the big AAA sense. Obviously, indies are taking good care of us right now. So, hoping for the best. You got the talent. Don't be the initiative and squander that talent, because the initiative also had a lot of talent, and they haven't put out a game yet over on Xbox. So that could easily go wrong. So, a quick story number 4: Meta Quest 3 announced alongside Quest 2 price cuts. The next-gen virtual and mixed reality headset launches this fall. It will launch this fall with prices starting at $499 for a 128GB headset, with an additional storage option also planned. Meta Quest 3 features higher resolution, stronger performance, breakthrough meta reality technology, and a slimmer, more comfortable headset. Meta also announced that starting on June 4, it will cut the Quest 2 price to $299 for the 128GB version, meaning it will cost the same as it did prior to a $100 price increase in August 2022. The price of the 256GB version will also be reduced to $349.99. So, next gen, the quote-unquote next gen VR, right after PSVR 2 just came out, which is selling slightly better, but it's still pricier. This is actually undercutting the PSVR 2.
They had to.
They totally had to if they want to be competitive. And I still remain skeptical about VR being a thing. Have you tried Quest 2, by the way? I did try it. Yeah, I did try it. I was actually impressed I was like, oh man, this is actually really good for a wireless, like untethered VR unit. That's a big strength of the Quest compared to the PSVR. You need the $500 PS5 to be able to play those games. It doesn't stand on its own, so it's like $1,000 investment. So the price seems like it's part of the market, but I'm like glad that the other ones like got cheaper, because there's a lot of cool stuff in Quest 2. So
I've spoken with a couple of VR developers and stuff like that on the single player experience. The episode's coming out pretty soon, but like they mentioned that the hurdle to VR is not necessarily the hardware at all right now. It's just like getting money support right now to actually work on those kind of things, because like you can't as a studio, indie studio, without like a guarantee from a developer or from like a major AAA company, it's a huge risk. You can lose your company on a VR, taking a risk on a VR title.
Sony lost studios to VR. Like they had studios that they closed that worked on VR early for VR1. So it's like it's an unproven market, unfortunately. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like people are not gonna buy the device if they don't see like a compelling game to make the investment. But then it's like, why would you make a game for the system if you don't think people are gonna? So it's like a chicken and the egg scenario for that.
It is
for that thing. And to be fair, for Quest, because it has Facebook money behind it, it's like it has that, but it's still like many developers like it's still like, it feels like a dead end for many developers, and that's always felt like the next step for gaming, and it just sucks that it never took off, or they're still attempting. It's like it's like it feels like it's like such a slow grind to make it a thing, but it's like at $299 I feel it's at the right price right now, especially because the Quest 2 is actually really good.
I spoke to a couple of insiders right now, like not right now, but like earlier in the year, and they basically told me like, hey, the gateway to VR really taking off in the market is if Amazon Luna or maybe like a Stadia like subscription model comes to a basically VR platform.
Oh, that would be so good, because then it would be like it would provide the safety net for like kind of like the Apple Arcade. That our Apple Arcade, thankfully, was the only place in mobile that started getting cooler games that were not gachas or like microtransaction nightmares that were the free to play stuff. It felt like a curated place. They need that. Like VR.
That's the point. Yeah.
VR totally needs that, and I'm glad now that we got the price. The price is right for Quest 2. It can even go cheaper now. Now that the 3 exists, because then it can provide like a base. So. Let's hope. Yeah. I've always been and I don't own one, but I was impressed with what I used this holiday, like where I went to stay when I went to Dallas. They had one there, and that's when I first tried. I was like, man, this is actually really cool. It sucks that it's like there's nothing much here for me to compel to pay like the $400 something for it. But yeah, it's like Quest 3 is now out in the market. It's gonna be out soon. Still hoping the best for VR and all those VR devs, because I bet you there's like some untapped creativity that you're just waiting to unleash.
Yeah,
but they can't, because they know that it could like sink them. So, final story, and a funny one. By Chris Collins by BGC, Yuji Naka could be sentenced to 2.5 years in prison for insider trading. So Yuji Naka is the Sonic the Hedgehog co-creator, so by the way. So Sonic the Hedgehog co-creator Yuji Naka faces a prison sentence of 2.5 years and a fine of over 1.2 million for his part in an insider trading scheme at Square Enix. Ebima Times reports that at the Tokyo District Court on Thursday, prosecutors demanded that Naka serve a prison term of 2 years and 6 months. The prosecutor's office also ordered a fine of 2.5 million and a supplementary penalty of 170 million yen, claiming Naka showed no signs of remorse. His defense has requested that the fine be reduced and the sentence be suspended. A final decision is expected to be made on July 7. I would say like he deserves prison for the creation of Sonic, but that would be too harsh. Because I actually do enjoy a couple Sonic games. I actually stand by, even though he hasn't worked on Sonic in like forever, since like the originals. Sonic Frontiers is like a legit decent game for a franchise that has been hot garbage for 20. I still stand by that one. That was a fun one. Hope it receives a subscription release some for people actually to see that game was actually decent. So.
The crazy thing is, old boy is about to go to jail for 2.5, potentially 2.5 years, and Martha Stewart went to jail for the same thing for 5 months. Like 5, she got 5 months.
What, was she also for insider trading?
Insider trading back in 2001. That is absolutely crazy.
That's so funny. Maybe it's different. Like insider trading over in Japan feels like a more serious, egregious thing.
I guess so.
But it's so funny because I know a lot of people are saying like he deserves prison for the creation of Sonic, but there's good Sonic amidst the horrible that has like permeated the franchise.
Maybe the Werehog game. Maybe the Werehog game, but not.
The Warhol game is horrible. Sonic
yeah,
Unleashed.
that's what I was like.
Yeah,
maybe he needs jail time for that. But
Yeah.
everything else,
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah. As far as I know, he has no input on any of the 3D games. Unfortunately, it would be easier to like blame blame the Warhol on him, and even Sonic 06, which is like the legendary horrible 360 PS3 game. But I mean, Balan Wonderland, was it called?
Wonderland, yeah.
Yeah, that he made that, so he deserves jail for that.
Oh, that's rough.
So,
real rough.
And with that concludes the news. Just there's a few games showing up the next week. Sebastion, take it away.
For next week?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
For June 4th to June 10th. I forgot to change the dates there.
It's all right. It's all right. I got you right here. We have Amnesia: The Bunker for Xbox Series X and X, PS4, Xbox One, and PC coming at you June 6th. Also June 6th, we have the release of Diablo 4. Coming at you for PS5, Xbox Series X and X, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. June 8th, Harmony, The Fall of Reverie for the Switch and PC. And June 8th also has a release of Moto GP
23.
tweet.
And if you pay the $100 edition for Diablo 4, you can start playing tonight. I'm not gonna pay $100 for that, even though I heard it's pretty good. It's like, I'm gonna save my money.
There's a saying we have back in Texas: you can holler at me when you're sober. I ain't about to pay $100 for that.
Yeah, even though it received really good reviews, which is a big win for Blizzard, because Overwatch 2 has been a disaster for them, especially when they canceled the single player mode. That still cracks me up to no end.
So you're gonna be playing a lot of Diablo 4 this week?
Not this week. I'm waiting for June 6.
Okay, gotcha.
So this week I'm gonna have to do the Street Fighter 6 that comes out tomorrow, but I'm gonna play a bunch of it and see how I like it. But then I might still focus on Final Fantasy 15 and Mortal Kombat 9. Just those are the two games that are like speaking to me currently. So, what about you? What are you gonna be playing?
I'm going to polish off Dead Island. Dead Island 2. I'm close to the end. I think like very close to the end. So I'm gonna polish that off. I'm gonna be playing what is it? Probably Forspoken, and then I have a couple of indie games to review as well.
If you finish Forspoken and you ever want to do like a deep dive,
yeah, that's the goal. I'm gonna hit you up for a deep dive.
Let me know, because it's like I'm one of the ones that actually like that game.
Yeah.
So like they actually reviewed it good. So
for sure, we might even have another like advocate of the game joining us for that one, and it's a pretty big YouTuber, so
that'd be cool. So
yeah, for sure. So yeah, those are the games I'll probably be playing.
Perfect. So, and with that, it concludes this week's episode. Quite a lengthy episode of the X Bottom, but we had some like amazing discussions.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I know what happened, but I prefer having them here than in text because nuance can be lost. So, Sebastion, where can people find you?
Man, y'all can find me at the Single Player Experience Podcast, the premier podcast for single player gamers to find out about good single player games to play. You can find me there. It's all available on all platforms. We also have a Single Player Experience Discord server. You can hit us up there. We're growing in numbers and stuff like that. We talk a lot of noise, but we have a lot of fun there as well. So you can find me there, and then you can also just find me on the social medias. Hit me up wherever you find. Just type in Sebastion. I'm the only Sebastion in existence. So you'll find me
with an O, Sebastion.
Yeah, exactly.
That helps.
Exactly. Alejandro, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me at @A_DorSegovia on Twitter. They can find me on Instagram at AlejandroSegovia93, and my current recent written content at seasongaming.com.
Yeah, for sure. And before we go, people, if you like what you see with this gorgeous green screen below, go check out Sub2PR. Like they are making great products and such like that. They hooked your boy up with this one. Go check them out. I'm
actually gonna check it out because I've been loving the quality. Like
it's really good.
Everything that you've been putting out there. So
yeah.
And you can check some of my episodes that I've guested over the Single Player Experience. That one that we did for the
for
showcase.
Sure.
Is it live yet, or is it still coming?
That one's coming. We had a little snafu with the editing quality and such like that, so we're trying to work through it. We're able to kind of get back a lot of the stuff that was lost and such like that, but I'm gonna take another crack at it and such like that very soon.
All right, and hit me up whenever you want to have like deep dives on other games.
Already, Yeah, and everyone, definitely look out for Alejandro to be on the Single Player Experience podcast. We're going to be talking about Metroid Prime Remastered pretty soon.
Oh yeah, definitely can't wait to hear your like deep thoughts as someone that I'm a veteran of that series. So I played it, and you came in fresh, so
Yeah,
that's gonna have like two interesting valid perspectives to one of like what's considered one of gaming's greatest games. So.
Yeah, for sure. And let's everyone send our well wishes out to Paul. He was bit by snakes in 2 eyes, and such a fact he is recovering. He will be on the show next week. So
yeah, the snake, the corporate snakes.
The corporate snakes, yeah, both eyes. As a matter of fact.
Yes. All right, Sebastion. So it was fun. Everyone else, thank you for listening. Everyone is going to listen through us for our normal feed or through the sharing of the single player experience. We appreciate you all. You all rock. Stay healthy. Stay safe. Play some games.
Remember,
press X.
There you go.
To
Peace
play.
out, everyone.
Adios.